Warning, the following podcast contains adult language, themes, and situations. Also, the film we're about to talk about is going to be spoiled thoroughly. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy this show.
How does Nicolas Cage possibly follow up the brilliant, touching, and life-affirming masterpiece featuring prose that touches the very essence of the human soul that was Willy's Wonderland? We'll find out as we dive deep into Nic's critically acclaimed return to Oscar contention, Pig.
Okay, let's run.
I'm like a prickly pear.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat a-hole? Porker, how'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you
Pissed blood!
Welcome to One Cage at a Time, the show where we break down every single Nicolas Cage movie, one film at a time. Here are your hosts, Patrick, Vince, and Nigel.
Robin Feld has been hiding himself away deep in the Oregon woods, but when his beloved truffle-hunting pig is kidnapped, he's forced to return the world he left behind.
Let's see who's joining Nic on this adventure.
Pig features incredible performances from Alex Wolff AKA Spencer from the new Jumanji movies, Adam Arkin, and of course the soon-to-be, hopefully, two-time Academy Award-winning actor and best damn truffle pig hunter there is, Nicolas Kim Coppola, better known as Nicolas Cage.
Woo!
Let's dive into the nitty-gritty.
Pig was released July 16th, 2021. I could not find budget anywhere. I scoured the internet trying to find out what the actual budget for this movie was. So I can't really update our full budget, but for now I just put 3 question marks in there. I have no idea. But it has made $2.9 million since it came out. And actually, I don't think it was intended to go to the theaters, but because of the critical acclaim that it's gotten, they actually put it out in a small run. Directed by Michael Sarnowski. This is actually his debut. I mean, debuting with a 97% is pretty impressive. I mean, got to imagine that this dude is at the very beginning of really big things, or maybe he'll Kevin Smith it and just tank from then on.
Or maybe Paul Schrader,
Yeah,
Paul Schrader at least strung together
do some
good
so-so
stuff
shit for a while, and then
No, I think if this guy writes and directs his own films, he'll continue to have success because this was a very personal film for him.
Yeah.
It's a story that he felt he was ready to finally tell.
He is super young. I mean, he looks like I couldn't find an actual, there's no information on him because this is his first thing. So I don't know his actual age, but he looks pretty young. I mean, late 20s, early 30s. So, I mean, dude's on the cusp of a pretty monumental career. It was co-written by Vanessa Block. They apparently met each other at Yale, the two of these, Michael Sarnowski and Vanessa Block.
Oh, wow.
And it was shot by Michael Scola, who has mostly done indie films and some music videos. See, that theme keeps coming up.
That's so funny.
But, this movie was beautifully shot. I mean, gorgeous. I do have one complaint about the movie is the handheld really distracted me, especially when I saw it in the theater. It was just so shaky cam at certain points, which is fine. The idea of shaky cam is to kind of create tension and put you in the moment and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it was just distracting. It was almost making me sick at points.
I honestly didn't even notice.
I didn't either.
But then again,
I don't think on a smaller screen you can notice it as well, but when it was, huge in front of me, it was ugh, okay.
I was gonna say, then again, I'm a huge fan of the Bourne films, and the last 3 you have to be okay with shaky cam.
Yeah. It was particularly in the scene where he finds out who actually took the pig, and then he starts beating the hell out of the Camaro. That was shaking crazy.
That was a pretty shaky scene.
It, of course, is just like, I mean, insanely critically acclaimed. 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is incredible for, I mean, this is a Nicolas Cage movie about a guy who's hunting for his truffle pig.
Yeah.
The setup for this movie entirely, like, makes you think that it's something else, you know, like it all is going to turn into some sort of John Wick type of deal, and it's going to be all sorts of campy, and
it's got the exact same setup as John Wick.
Yeah.
Like if you could put them both on paper as the same movie, which I think was very intentional.
I do too.
Designed to get you expecting one thing.
Yes, and I think, you know, we have there's this little like Fight Clubby moment in the movie that is heavily in the trailer, and I think that was designed to make people think, oh, this movie's going one direction, but then it really goes a completely different direction, which we'll get into. But 97%, 8.2 out of 10 on 175 reviews, which I think is the most reviews that we've had for any movie, on Rotten Tomatoes at least. Metacritic score is 82%, so it's almost identical. You know, 8.2 out of 10, 82%. Metacritic, and then the audience score is 84%. So the audience didn't love it as much as the critics, which I get. I totally get that. Because this isn't really like a. It's not the kind of movie that you're just going to watch over and over and over again. You know, it's not it's not a fun movie. You know, it's
feel good.
It's
blockbuster.
It's a real think piece and kind of a piece of art.
Yeah.
How about a Coppola quick facts?
In an after-film Q&A with director Michael Sarnowski, he revealed that the pig only had 3 days of training and bit Nicolas Cage multiple times. After a particularly nasty bite, Nic Cage joked, "I've been set on fire, I've been flipped in cars, but it'll be sepsis from a pig bite that kills me." The budget that we don't know anything about was apparently so small that they couldn't hire an actual trained pig. So this is just some random pig.
I had a feeling that was the case, given how many shots there were of the pig, like not in camera, but supposedly there. There was a couple of them.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't think they had the pig on set, or the pig wouldn't do what they wanted it to do.
Like that one shot when he whistles for the pig to come in the house, and Amir, he like kind of jumps out of the way, and you can tell there's like nothing there.
Yeah.
According to the director, they only had 20 days to make this movie. So all the actors had to get everything right from the first time, as there's no budget for a reshoot. It was, you know, any kind of delay was going to screw this whole thing up. So 20 days for this movie is pretty insane. I mean, it's not like a huge movie. There's not like a million set pieces, but like it's ambitious to try and do this thing in less than 3 weeks. That's pretty crazy.
I think the director said that all but one scene was shot on location, and they only had one stage scene, which is even more insane when you're trying to fit that into 20 days. I mean, everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Is that
especially
the
in
house?
Oregon. I'm not sure to be 100%. I don't remember him clarifying what was the stage, but he said 90% of the film was shot on location.
I think it's probably either the house or the Fight Club.
Yeah.
The Fight Club would be, that would make sense. Alex Wolff, which I've only seen in Jumanji, those 2 Jumanji movies, and then he's in this movie, you know, and he's brilliant in this movie. It's like so crazy sometimes in Hollywood, like how fast somebody is suddenly an adult, you know, like that kid was like 12 last time I saw him, and now he's like got a half stash going on, and he's like 20 something now. But he said that Nicolas Cage is his favorite actor of all time, which bodes well for Alex Wolff's future.
Yeah, right.
I will watch his career with great interest.
Yeah.
Same. This is just the first of many collabs.
Nearly an entire hour was cut from the movie because distributors thought it was too long. I'm wondering what was in that extra hour.
Yeah, I felt like it was great for the hour and a half that it was.
Yeah.
I was actually talking about it last night with my wife. Like, it's a perfect length for that movie. It's just 3 acts, half hour each.
Yep.
Tells the
Pacing is
story
just
it needs to
perfect.
do.
I feel like throughout the whole thing,
No wasted time. I felt.
Yeah.
we'll get into that. But like I saw some critic kind of compare it, because it's a food themed film, that it's just kind of the perfect blend. Like a perfect recipe of like the pacing's great, the way it was shot is great, the acting is great, like everything, every little piece just makes for a perfect little masterpiece.
It was weird to hear Gordon Ramsay do his review on it, and he just said it was donkey ass.
Dude, I was going somewhere like Gordon Ramsay. Oh no.
You should do film reviews. That'd be fun.
He really should. They'd be funny.
This was shit.
Cook a meal while talking about movies.
That's an awesome idea for a show.
That's brilliant. Hey, we're gonna do that.
Trademark 1 Cage at a time.
Trademark.
Early drafts of the script had the story actually set in France and Spain before finally landing in Portland. I guess, either one of those would probably work really well for the food theme and, famous chef and all that kind of stuff. He said in an interview that the director, Michael Sarnowski, that he just became fascinated with the idea of like an old man and a pig just living out in the woods. And that was kind of the beginning of the idea of the story. And then it became this crazy personal journey. Nicolas Cage has said that there's a lot of similarities between him and Rob, but he has previously said that the character that he most identifies with, that's the most close to him in real life, is his character from the movie Joe, which we'll do next season. I'm actually really excited about that because Nic Cage has talked about that movie a ton in interviews and stuff.
I was actually, when I was reading about this movie, a lot of that movie came up quite a few times in people's discussion of like favorite Nic Cage movies.
Yeah.
They were like saying he's been a great trifecta of not trifecta, but collection from Mandy, Color Out of Space, Pig, Joe. Like Joe always came up.
Yeah.
So and I've never even heard of it before this show. So
yeah,
ditto.
Looks like a kind of another like smaller type film like this. This is the highest rated Nicolas Cage movie of all time. I think we're pretty close to the end of the actual review process, so I would say that that's going to stick. It did, like, while I was writing the show sheet, it dropped to 96%. And there were like 172 reviews, and then I checked it this morning and it was up to 97% again. So it's kind of like fluctuating back and forth, which actually makes a big difference because technically the highest rated movie that Nicolas Cage has ever done is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But I don't really count that because he's in it for he's got like 12 lines in the whole movie.
Right. Yeah. That'd be like judging him off of Deadfalls.
I mean, he's in Deadfall a hell of a lot more than he is in
he really is.
Spider-Verse. But for those who are curious, he does have a handful of 90%ers behind this one. This one's 97%, but the next closest is Red Rock West at 95%. Moonstruck at 94%. This one's shocking. Face Off is 92%.
It was a different time.
92% for Face Off. Adaptation was 91%. Raising Arizona is lower than Face Off.
That's nuts.
At 91%. His Oscar-winning performance in Leaving Las Vegas is 90%. Mandy, 90%. And then, of course, Into the Spider-Verse. Nicolas Cage said that he wanted to remind viewers that he can give a realistic performance.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on, Willy's Wonderland. There we go.
That was realistic.
That was realistic, man.
I dance like that all the time when I'm playing pinball while crushing energy drinks.
And then this is kind of I should probably save it for in the context of the movie, but I felt like it was good to kind of point this out. We sort of pointed it out in Mandy. There was like an interesting extra little thing in the credits, but after the song that Laurie is recorded for Rob ends, you can hear nature sounds, someone digging for truffles, and then you hear a pig.
Yep.
So did he get a new pig, maybe? Or is it just the pig?
I think it was either that or he was just living with his memories of the pig.
Yeah.
Which is, that fits with the movie.
It does.
Yeah.
Especially like the way it ended, with him kind of looking up to the to the ceiling.
Yeah, I didn't think of it was him getting a new pig, but
No, I don't think
spoilers.
so.
I guess we don't want to spoil that yet, but I thought it was more of just the sound of the pig, but I think I like that more than him just getting a new one. But maybe it was like, shit, this is a really downer ending. Let's just like toss a little sound editing in the end to make it seem like a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the pig lives on in some way.
All right, it's time to break down the film one scene at a time. Act 1. Why don't we set some shit
It
up?
begins with part 1, rustic mushroom tart. We see a rather rotund and hairy Nicolas Cage and his pig chilling by a fire on the shore of a river deep in the dense Oregon forest. We see him head to a dilapidated cabin covered in moss where he whistles and his pig comes running. The two set out into the forest in search of truffles. Somehow the pig looks cleaner than Nic Cage, who sports filthy clothes, long greasy hair, and a beard that gets nastier with every scene of this film. That's no joke. It really does. He gets... The whole time, like when I was watching this with Shiloh, she's like, why doesn't he shower? Guy would want to shower.
I had a comment on it.
Yeah,
I
I guess we could say it now. Is like I kind of felt like he's a pig. He's a pig the whole movie, and a pig doesn't really feel the need to clean itself off, and that's kind of what I feel like he is. Kind of like this metaphor throughout the whole thing, and I think that's why he gained a little bit of weight for it. Which I don't know if you've seen any of the red carpet pictures from this, but he immediately lost that weight. So.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Well, this came out a couple years after they filmed it, right?
I don't know.
I believe this was filmed in 2019.
Oh.
So probably went on immediate. He had a year or so to drop the weight.
To trim up
But,
for National Treasure 3.
he had to get fit for his wedding. My thoughts
gotta
on
look good in those Zoom calls, man.
My thoughts on this is like his part of the theme of this movie is he rails against the facades people set up against them of themselves for the world facing, and that's not the real you. And I think just getting covered in dirt and blood and stuff, it's just the facade of it, your exterior appearance doesn't matter. I think that's just his philosophy. It's not who you are. People are going to see that and they're going to make judgments based on who you are as a person, but that's not who you are. So it doesn't matter what this looks like. In my mind, that was his thought process.
I
and
agree.
at the end, when he's done with this whole journey, he washes himself clean in the river, and it's part of his stuff. So I think that was the thematic element. That's my interpretation of why he just looks like a hobo and gets filthier and filthier as this whole thing goes on.
He also gets more and more beat up throughout the whole thing, and I kind of felt like that was also a metaphor of like his journey. He's just getting more and more beat up, and that's kind of symbolism for his life in general.
The pig finds the truffle and Nick digs it out of the ground. We can already see the symbolism of the two companions, filthy and forgotten in the woods. We just talked about that. Digging up tubers now long associated with the height of pompous sophistication that only the most pretentious among us can enjoy. Now, that being said, I did make a beautiful truffle mushroom dish a few weeks ago, and it was fucking delicious.
Was it a tart? Did you make a...
No, I'm not that skilled.
Did you deconstruct it with huckleberry foam and pine cone smoke?
Yes, actually, we had foam of the rustic moss that I found out about.
Foam of the rustic moss.
We see Nick, or should we say Rob, expertly crafting a meal in his cabin straight out of Alone in the Wilderness, as if he were preparing a meal for royalty.
Sorry, that was a deep cut. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's like this old man who builds a cabin in the middle of Alaska, and it was filmed by him himself, but it was like shot in the 50s or the 40s.
Oh yeah, I've
never seen that.
Yeah, it's an amazing little documentary.
Yeah,
check that
I saw it on PBS once.
But yeah, it's definitely a deep cut that most people wouldn't get.
I didn't realize that's what it was called because it's so generic.
Alone in the Wilderness.
Yeah, it's a really cool documentary.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'll check it out. Sounds good. It's almost like this backwoods vagrant was once a world-class chef or something. I thought it was very interesting that they did choose to show that part of him so early on, and I think he nailed it. I think he nailed it and did a really good job at showing like the care that chefs do put into the things that they make. And even though he's out in the middle of nowhere, filthy, hunting truffles with a pig, like, he still has like that's still his way of expressing himself, like his genuine, authentic self, which is like we just talked about is a theme here throughout the films. Like,
it's important. It's one of the things that he cares about.
Yeah,
that
it's
he's
like being
left in his
authentic.
life.
I saw a little behind the scenes thing of Nic Cage actually went and trained in a restaurant for a few weeks, I believe, before they actually started shooting. So, yeah,
It shows.
That dude is like we talked about on The Weatherman. Like he watched them do the report once, and then he just like went up there and just did it. And so he's just a brilliant mimic, and he's an actor, of course, but like. Most people couldn't do that. Just perfectly mimic some world-class chef. I mean, obviously he's not actually cooking the food, but he got the gestures perfect.
Yeah, he didn't Favreau this. He ends up making a rustic mushroom tart. That's the name of this part of the movie. That he and the pig share as Rob enjoys the quiet tranquility of the woods before he and his only friend lay down for bed. The next day we see Rob enjoying a peaceful morning, which is shattered by the douchey sounds of Camaro revving its engines while blasting classical music as it rumbles up to his shanty in the woods. It's very like I feel like the director really wanted to nail this opposite persona that was coming his way. And I think the Camaro and the classical music, and then when he gets out, and we'll get into describing him here in a minute, but it's really like sets that character up. Like, you can tell, like, dude, this guy is trying to put this image out. Once again, going back to the authentic part, or the authentic themes. Like, this guy's trying to put this image out. It's not him, though.
Yep.
Rob is obviously annoyed as this jerk cowardly pushes past his pig, but he hands him a cooler full of truffles. This guy, Amir, is dressed in a golf shirt, suit, and Gucci belt. He asks the grumpy dude if he wants him to buy a camp shower before holding his nose at the foul stench she's surely emitting, and then asks if he wants a phone. So right there, like just everything, like the introduction of this character just tells you so much about this kid. Like, he's trying to put this persona out there and create this image for himself that just is not authentic to who the guy is, as we will soon learn throughout this journey.
Yeah.
Trying to be his father, but is definitely not his father, which is actually a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's another theme I really enjoyed that he goes through. It's just like your parental relationships. And especially for young guys, like trying to seek the approval of their dad.
Yeah. It's funny how much Rob's story mirrors Amir's parents in a way. If you watch, just like, I feel like
it really does.
I have this theory that Rob is kind of like, or Darius, Amir's dad, is kind of like what Rob would have become had he stayed and not left. Spoilers. Left the city and gone up into the woods and lost his fucking mind or whatever happened to him.
I agree. I thought that was a great comparison. It's like, this is the life he could have lived had he stayed and continued down the path that he was on.
Just bitter and angry and resentful and trying to hurt everyone in your life.
Yeah. Rob ignores him as Amir says he doesn't want to be the one to find him dead from some sort of animal attack. Then he whistles for his pig and slams the door in the Jago's face. Amir says he'll see him next Thursday and douches out in his douchemobile while Rob goes through some supplies he gave him. He puts some batteries into his stereo and pops a tape in labeled "For Robin." The tape features the voice of what we can assume is Rob's wife, who, judging by the state of Rob and the look on his face, is either dead or left him. She tells him to leave the room so she can surprise him with a song, but Rob stops the tape and sits sullen in front of the stereo for a while before his faithful companion comes to comfort him. That's another thing, too. I felt like, because this opening scene it moves at such a good pace, but it really does, like, set everything up so well. It gives you really good character development, some foreshadowing, and then also, like, just the relationship between him and the pig. They capture, like, they build that bond, and like they get you invested so quick, so that when things start to happen, you do genuinely feel bad for them.
Yeah, I saw some complaint about the pig not being in it enough and not like building a strong enough bond between that. But I really felt like they didn't need to spend more time than what they did. I felt like it was pretty perfect.
Like this guy's isolated in the woods.
Yeah, it's not a hard concept to grasp.
Yeah,
Right.
I feel like the critiques of this movie were like really nitpicky. Like if anybody felt that there was anything wrong with this movie, it was like really nitpicky, which I think is a good sign that this was a pretty perfect film. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's just maybe some critics feel they have to, because that's like if they're not finding anything wrong with the film, then it's like people aren't gonna take them seriously or believe them, you know?
Right.
Some of the negative reviews felt like they didn't watch the movie at all. And I bet you they didn't. I bet you they just assumed it was one thing, and they were like, "Oh, well, this is a bunch of hogwash." Nicolas Cage's John Wick epic is,
Yeah, I could definitely see that, because it's not. Yeah, like we talked about, the trailer kind of set it up like it could potentially be a John Wick style film, but then as we learn, while watching it, it is.
I have a deadline. I watched the trailer. All right, here comes the review.
Here's the review. Pig.
Wait, everybody else is giving this like 97%. What?
Shit. Published.
Shit, it's already published.
We cut to Rob in his filthy pajamas, consoling the pig, who is scared by the howls of coyotes nearby in the woods. Rob wakes up later that night to the pig snorting and sniffing nervously at the door, which he tries to slough off to the pig being scared of coyotes. But suddenly the door bursts open, violently throwing Rob to the ground. We see a couple of shadowy figures steal the pig in a bag, and for good measure, they bash Rob across the face with a crowbar, or something, as he desperately tries to save his pig.
Yeah, I didn't know for sure what he got hit in the face with. It just was a metal sound, and it was so fast and dark that you don't really see what it did.
Dark. Yeah, that whole scene too was shot very well. Just like capturing the chaos of it.
Yeah,
just like that desperate attempt to try to save his pig, just to get blindsided. Well, not blindsided, but just get hammered on with a bat or crowbar or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
The pig screeches and screams as Rob lays helpless on the floor, but he manages to pull himself up to the window in time to see the truck as it speeds away before collapsing to the ground. Rob wakes up the next morning in a pool of his own blood in his cabin, which may or may not have been just as ransacked looking before the attack. That is one thing that kind of did pull me out of that scene. I'm like, I don't really feel like they did that much. But then he's kind of dirty, so maybe that's just how it was before.
It's like a hoarder who just throws shit on the ground, you know?
Yeah, because I was like, I don't really remember them knocking over much stuff. Mainly just beating him up and getting the pig, but it's so dark, who knows?
I mean, you know, it goes back to that pig theme of like he's kind of living in his own filth. The floor of that place is filthy. It's
living in a pigsty.
Yeah, exactly.
He weakly whistles for his pig to no avail. Next, we see him fire up an old, rundown, rusted out pickup truck that definitely hasn't been driven in years, because it immediately breaks down, forcing Rob to walk into town, which for some reason he does by walking in the middle of the road. You know, when that guy drove by and honked at him, I was like, yeah, I'd honk too, bro.
I would
like,
too.
Yeah, there's a ton of space for you to safely walk.
Creepy vagrant. Yeah. It's clearly never seen They Live. White lines in the middle of the road. It's the worst place to be.
Wow, good pull.
Yeah, that's a good pull. He heads to a diner and lingers through the window creepily at some dudes inside. He asks a waitress about someone named Marge after clearing his throat, since he's not accustomed to speaking much these days. She says Marge died 10 years ago, so he asks to use a phone and calls up the douchey Camaro driving kid who's sporting a weak version of the Tony Stark stash.
I thought it was a nice callback to Large Marge from Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I just think of the same thing, too.
She died 10 years ago on a night just like tonight. The worst accident I ever seen.
It'd be amazing if that was actually like where he pulled that from.
Yeah.
Large Marge.
He shows up and is a prick right off the bat. He's honking his horn, calling him a fucker while making sure he covers his seats with some towels so Ted Kaczynski doesn't stink up the leather. He asks Rob if the giant gash on his head hurts, and Rob gives him a glare. Amir tells him this isn't his problem, to which Rob says if he wants his supply, then he needs to get his pig back. So it is kind of your problem, Amir. because he seems to be Amir, his stuff seems to be the best
Yeah.
product that Amir gets.
Yeah, it seems like the tweaked out, I don't know, the hippie commune that they go to aren't exactly the best run operation in the world, but Rob is always like,
Yeah.
always
So
producing.
wouldn't you know it, Amir cranks up classical music that also features a pompous dude talking over it, explaining why classical music is good, which is always a sign that music's good when you have to have somebody explain to you why it's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes back again to like, he's not, like, he doesn't actually like classical music.
No.
His dad does.
He does. He's trying to figure out why his dad likes it and why he should like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain to me why this is good, British guy.
Yeah. Because I have an accent the size of a tangerine. Rob shuts it off after giving Amir another signature Nic Cage glare. Amir turns it back on, and again, Rob turns it off. They head to a hippie commune or whatever Whole Foods looks like in Portland, where it's revealed that Amir buys from them too. Rob explains to the cleanest of the hippies that some tweakers in a turquoise pickup truck stole his pig, and she freaks out. That part was just a little
A little over the top.
Yeah.
She's the one overacting in this film.
I think it was she's just tired of these tweakers. Like she has
Yeah.
to work with these tweakers because I don't know.
Right. I
they're
connected 'cause
mushroom hunters again. Maybe she sells psychedelic mushrooms on the side.
Yeah.
And she's just sick of their shit. Like anybody who's worked with tweakers
I was
or
gonna
been
say, I
around
connected
tweakers
with
for
her on
longer than
that.
24 hours
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
sick of their
I'm
shit.
over it. I'm over it. You just snap. She leads them straight to an even more nasty trailer than Rob's cabin, where a couple of junkies, one of them I'm pretty sure is Sway from Gone in 60 Seconds,
Who is called Tweakette in the subtitles.
is it really?
Yes.
Awesome. To which they explain that they did in fact steal his pig. I mean, if she isn't Skeletor, then she's definitely discount Kristen Wiig. Anyways, she says some rich city guy in a fancy black car paid them to take it, and he has the pig now. Rob explains to Amir that his pig is irreplaceable and tells him to take him to Portland, where a filthy, homeless-looking dude covered in blood will blend in seamlessly. I'm not sure if any of our listeners have been to Portland, but that's how, like, every other person looks downtown. That's no joke.
Yeah. I thought that was actually pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was
It's
actually, I was
100%.
thinking as I was watching, I was like, where are all the homeless people? They're not showing any. But then I realized, oh, the main character just looks like
Yeah.
one. So
There you go. That's all
there's
you need.
also an important part. I think it's in that scene where he talks to Amir about his car. Because I think Amir mentions.
No, I
like,
think
some-
it's coming up actually.
It's coming
is
up,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
It's as they're on their way to the city.
That's right.
Rob says he might know somebody in the city who can help. Amir tells him he's not taking him to the city because everything he does is about his reputation and that people talk, to which Rob makes fun of his douchey car and shirt.
Listen, what I do is all about my reputation. People talk.
People talk.
Yeah,
People talk.
stop saying that.
You like this car? You like that shirt?
Shut up.
So that, like you're talking about, like, that's the scene where he's hammering on him. He's like, you like your car?
You like that
You like
car?
your clothes?
You like that
It's
shirt?
great because he's like, yeah, you like your car? You like that shirt? That's all he has to say. Yeah. It's just like, shut up. Fuck you.
Yeah, because he knows how douchey he is, like, for
Yeah.
valuing these material objects so much. Because
Yeah.
that's not who he really is. Like, that's not what matters to Amir.
Yeah.
All that matters is getting his father's approval, which is presenting himself in this manner. At least that's what he thinks.
I would say Amir's, like, his character development over the course of this movie is like my favorite part of the whole thing, because like
Same.
you watch
Yeah.
him go from this douchey asshole to like kind of becoming a real person by the end of the movie through
Yeah.
this journey that it takes place over the course of 2 days, I think, the whole film.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be about two days from when he gets picked up to when the film ends. Yeah, it's like a 2
Yeah.
day span.
I think you can imagine that Rob went through something similar.
Yes.
And I think that was Rob
Yes.
was trying to get him to accelerate his path so he gets onto it and doesn't waste a bunch of his
Yes.
life like Rob did.
Yep.
Yeah, their relationship throughout the film is very genuine and authentic, and I felt that too. Like Rob went through something similar, and he's trying to help Amir open his eyes to see that the validation he's seeking is not the validation that he needs, and that he's wasting his life pursuing things that don't mean or matter anything to him, and that reputation. We'll get into this all later too, but like reputation is not as important as he wants to believe it is.
Yeah.
They head into Portland, and you can tell Rob is incredibly uncomfortable with the hectic energy of the city, the buildings, lights, etc.
I thought it was really funny. Like, it was the typical, like, almost like driving into Vegas montage for a movie with all the lights superimposed over each other, but it's all like random buildings in Portland. Like, I just like that, like, Portland was the place to be in this movie, but it's like being in the Pacific Northwest, Portland is not like, I don't know if it's different in Oregon, but like Portland's not like a destination city for a lot of shit to me. Like, it's not like the happening place.
Oregon.
It is for Oregon, I suppose.
Yeah. Like that's the place to be. Like that's because that's the only major, like real major city that they have. Everything else are a lot smaller, and then there's just a lot of unincorporated parts of Oregon as well.
You could imagine like being a kid somewhere else in Oregon. Portland would be the place that you'd always want to go to. I would think like go to concerts and, you know, experience actual like big city life, and because the rest of Oregon is forest and plains. I mean, it's just
desert.
And desert
farmland.
I mean, Portland's no Bend. Let's just say that.
It's no Astoria.
Kindergarten Cop. That's where they filmed Kindergarten Cop.
Goonies.
And the Goonies, yeah.
Rob asked for $10.
And Short Circuit.
Man, all these great films were shot there.
80s, man.
Hell of a time.
It was like
a
the
lot
place,
of cocaine.
apparently.
Hell of a time.
Cheap ass town that looks really cool, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's actually pretty gorgeous there.
Yeah, I'm guessing that it's not as cheap to film there anymore because I haven't seen a movie in Astoria in 30 years.
No, not at all. Rob asks for $10 and heads into a food truck stand where he buys some tacos or something and gives them to a guy in a tent who seems shocked to see Rob. Rob gives him the food and asks if he's heard anything about a pig. This guy says he remembers a time when Robin's name meant something, but now he has no value. You don't exist. Which is a very like chilling scene. Like people just, you know, this is like the first time you really get a sense that Robin was somebody with some pretty good reputation and clout, and for somebody to tell him like, hey, you don't mean anything anymore, and like you don't exist to anybody because you have no value. I was like, holy shit, dude, that's a pretty okay. So this movie is just going to continue going down this path of very dark themes.
It felt very autobiographical to me, like very almost fourth wall breaking. Like he was talking to Nicolas Cage, the actor. Which is Nicolas Cage was perfect for this role because of that and for other reasons. But it almost felt like he was saying, you know, your name used to mean something. You're an award-winning actor. You starred in big budget blockbuster stuff, but now you mean nothing. You just like you do movies like this that have no budget. I'm not saying that this movie is bad, but like he's been known as kind of a joke in recent years. It's changing. The trajectory has definitely been on the upswing, but
Mandy in this film have definitely reset people's expectations for the films he's
just
doing.
Go online and read how many people were like, oh my god, Pig was great, like I didn't realize Nicolas Cage could do stuff like this.
I mean, they really missed out. I mean, I really thought he started making a journey back to what he was in like the 90s and 2000s when he delivered that performance in Dog Eat Dog. I thought that was really where
he's become known for movies like Dog Eat Dog.
I feel like Mandy was even kind of like, this is an over the top crazy action movie. You know, his performance in it was amazing and the movie was great. But it was still kind of falling in that same category of like, oh, this is what Nic Cage does now. He does horror movies and he does over-the-top revenge films.
Kind of campy and cheesy, but regardless of the performance. And I don't think the main audience saw Mandy. Like most people don't know it exists. So the point kind of still stands. Like his name, you say Nicolas Cage. We run into it with this show, like telling people we're doing this show. The most reply I get, number one reply is like, why are you doing a show about Nicolas Cage movies?
Why?
So
or like, when are you doing National Treasure?
Or that. It's either, oh God, he's terrible, or oh, you should do this one movie that I know him for.
That's every time I talk to somebody about doing this show, it's, why are you doing that? Oh, he does such bad movies. And then, this movie is one of my favorite movies. Okay, you can't have it both ways. I guess you can make fun of some of the stuff that he's done, but at the same time, did you watch it? Did you watch any of those movies? All you know is another Nicolas Cage movie? Okay. So, I feel like I feel like we're at the cusp of a Nicolas Cage renaissance, and I really feel like Pig is kind of this movie is in Oscar contention, and it's crazy to think that he's done these crazy movies for years on end now, and then he does a movie that sounds like exactly the same kind of crazy movie that he's done, but then you watch it and it subverts your expectations completely, and his name is in Oscar contention. It's just crazy.
It's a deconstruction of a Nicolas Cage movie in the same way that deconstructing dishes, like world-class chefs always try to do. It's
Rob leaves looking defeated, and the guy asks Amir if he even knows Rob's real name. Amir seems confused that this nasty vagrant he's been doing business with might have, at some point, been a human people gave a shit about. Amir asks how he knew the legend that is Edgar, who hangs out in a tent, and Rob says he used to live in the neighborhood, which that makes sense.
I was confused as to where Edgar was in relation to that food truck. The food truck, that little
It
food
looked
area.
Like they were hanging out in a beer garden type place where food trucks show up and
If you ever watched Portlandia, that same food truck stand is in an episode of Portlandia, so I recognized it immediately.
That's a real place.
It's a real place in Portland, but where is Edgar? Is he in the food truck area, or is he off in why is he in a burlap tent?
I kind of figured he was back in a tent that's set up for the employees of the food trucks to go.
Or a break area or something.
Yeah.
But he was doing paperwork and stuff, so I'm guessing that's
he was who knows what he was doing. He's mysterious.
Maybe he runs that food truck area.
That's what I thought, was he was the owner of that place, but I mean, I guess now a little bit further in the movie, he's probably doing paperwork for his other activities. It's kind of, I think, makes it a little more clear. But
next they head to a restaurant where a cook is taking a smoke break, which is pretty accurate to the chef lifestyle. He isn't surprised in the least to see a filthy guy walk up to him in the alley and nonchalantly tells him to go away, which tells you that they really did their homework about Portland for this film. Because once again, that's a pretty common occurrence. Rob says he's having a night out with his friend, and the cook recognizes Amir, who says the shabby homeless looking dude is his super successful and rich dad's friend, which is good enough for this guy to let them inside.
Sure, just go in there.
Homeless, it's funny now you think
guy
about
covered in blood.
Now that we know who his dad is, that statement doesn't make any sense.
He's a friend of my dad. Okay.
Okay.
The mob boss of restaurants in Portland. This
just
filthy
walk through
dude.
Our kitchen. Filthy. I'm sure that doesn't violate any health codes. But moving on with that, Rob walks in like he owns the place and says they're going to the Hotel Portland before trying to move a shelf in the kitchen. Amir says Rob needs to keep him in the loop, and Rob says he's just his ride, which pisses Amir off, who calls Rob a homeless asshole who probably fucks his pig. Finally, someone says out loud what we're all thinking. You can't be living in the woods by yourself with a pig and not have people assume that you fuck it.
Rob says, very sensual animals. So
yeah, it's true. They're beautiful. Rob says,
I don't fuck my pig.
And Amir decides to bail. Rob stops him by telling Amir that the Hotel Portland was torn down in the 50s, but they covered up the sub-basement with Pioneer Square, and now it's Edgar's place. Which, that part pulled me out of the movie. I don't know Portland well enough, but obviously, growing up in the Seattle area, when I hear Pioneer Square, I immediately think of Seattle. But
I did look it up, and this is an actual hotel that did exist and was torn down in the 50s and replaced by Pioneer Square.
I was going to say, given the detail that the writers have in this film, without a doubt, okay, both those things have to be real.
I don't know if it actually is there, like the sub basement is actually there, but like that hotel was there in Pioneer Square and was torn down to, I think, build the courthouse or something, and then they put a park there. It's different from Pioneer Square in Seattle, where Pioneer Square in Seattle is more like a big bunch of shops and
yeah, it's a big hobo camp.
Homeless encampment. But like this one is a park, which is basically also a homeless encampment. It's because it's Portland, you know.
That's why he wants to go there so bad, I guess. Anyways, he and Amir move a shelf, revealing a hole in the wall that leads to some real Fight Club weirdness. He says Edgar has been running fights for restaurant workers for 30 years and explains that if your name means something, they'll bid high to see you fight. Amir asks how he knows that and questions who Rob really is. We see a fight club of some sort where apparently the rules of the game are someone stands with their hands behind their back while another guy beats the shit out of him. And depending on how long the guy being beaten can stand it, they win a certain amount of money. The first guy lasts 10 seconds and wins $500. The rules of Restaurant Fight Club are very unclear.
I was like, did he win the $500 or did the guy beating the hell out of him win $500? Who's
he
Dennis?
Looked like a homeless guy too. Like it almost felt like they're just paying homeless people to get beaten up so that restaurant workers can take their frustrations out. Which I talked to my wife about this, and she actually said that part seemed completely believable.
Really?
She's a server. She has been for over a decade, and she says people who work in restaurants are insane. But one of her coworkers, they'll take chip dishes out and just smash them because they need the stress relief. One of her coworkers takes dishes home to shoot them because she wants to blow them away with guns. She knows 2 people who within the last 2 years have drank themselves to death that were restaurant workers. So she said that this is completely believable, especially like you go to the back of house at any restaurant and you'll be able to buy drugs off nearly anybody working there. Like she said, it's just it's a complete scum show, I guess. So she was like, that part was, it's probably a little fantastical, but she totally could buy it. Especially if they're paying the head chefs to be punching bags, like like if it's a server or something, they probably wants to beat the fuck out of somebody. Some high profile guy working. So like I guess we'll get to it there, but like I think that's why Rob's name meant so much in that circle, because he was such a well-known chef, was probably kind of an asshole to work for, so a lot of the servers want to be able to wail on him for a minute straight.
What I just learned is that your wife has definitely beat up homeless people in this weird
fight club.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really funny that she was like, no, that part wasn't weird at all to me. Like,
it's funny because
I can totally see that happening.
I have heard that from some people. They're like, yeah, I can see that. I worked in a restaurant for a short amount of time, and it's nuts.
I was a big, I was a big fan of like Parts Unknown and No Reservations, but then after Anthony Bourdain died, I went on a deep dive and just watched all of them, and like that's the theme that just keeps coming up is like they're insane, they're cracked out, everybody in the kitchen is on drugs of some sort. So yeah. What kind of drugs is your wife doing, man?
But we've been out like.
And can she get us some?
Yeah, she can. Apparently, she can talk to anybody in the back house. But I mean, I've been out drinking with some of them, and they'll drink till 6 a.m. and then go back to work at 11 or whatever. Like they party hard, I guess. And I can't. And that's just like normal street level restaurants, Like I guess where she works now is like an upper middle class style restaurant. It's kind of pricey, but like nowhere near like a Michelin star restaurant like Rob probably worked at, where the servers there are, adult men in their 40s who've made careers out of being professional servers to high class clientele, who are probably really probably make you want to go smash some dishes after dealing with them day in, day out.
Yeah.
So this was a cool little, interlude in the movie. I liked it's kind of a weird thing, but it fits. It lets you know more about what's going on with this movie.
It's the one thing that kind of felt like it wasn't really meant to be in the movie. Like it almost felt like it was shoehorned into the movie a little bit. But upon further reflection on it, it kind of like Robin doesn't care if he gets his ass beat, just as long as he can feel a little bit of love, like he just wants his pig back so bad that he'll stand in front of this little person who like beats the hell out of him, and will take it just so that he can possibly get some information about where his pig is.
Yeah.
I think that was the point. Also, I think it was, again, to set up kind of a John Wick style, like, ooh, he's had a violent past with this Fight Club. Like, now he's going to go kick somebody's ass. But they flip it because he's not the one doing any fighting. He's the guy getting punched for a minute straight and getting his head bashed in just so he can find out where his pig is. So,
I think that's important that he's not fighting back at all. That's, whatever the Fight Club that they're, whatever the rules are here, like, it's interesting that they chose to make him not fight at all. He just stands there and takes it.
We've been conditioned as moviegoers to think like he's gonna bust out some moves and cave some guy's skull in, and then everybody's gonna go, oh, and tell him where his pig can be. Yeah, exactly. Again, it's the John Wick style. If John Wick had shown up at this Fight Club, he would have killed like 6 guys and stuff. So that's what the audience, I think, was expecting, and that's why it was included in the movie, just so it can turn it on its head and say that's not what's going on here.
Yeah, I think it also speaks a little bit to his character as well. Like you said, this shows you he's not a violent person, which will kind of play out through the rest of the film. Also, I think it does a little bit of a metaphor for he's just kind of given up. He doesn't fight anymore. Like, he doesn't fight for anything. Like, the most he's fighting for is to get his pig back, and at that point, he's willing to take whatever abuse he has to take. He's not even going to physically fight for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting.
Which we'll also know is a metaphor for his life. Like, his life has just been, his life recently, I guess, has just been a series of shit happening to him and getting the shit kicked out of him, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. Rob whistles, interrupting I Only Have Eyes for You by the Flamingos, which I guess is the killer track the hip restaurant kids are all into hearing while they beat the shit out of old men. So that was an interesting choice. He slowly makes his way to some cardboard that has been duct taped to the wall, where he scrawls his full name onto the wall in huge letters. I'm guessing he did that just to be a dick, because he could have easily written his name smaller and not written on the wall. Everyone, including Amir, are shocked to see that this grimy bum is none other than Robin Feld, a famous chef who all the culinary people of Portland seem to revere. Everyone in the room chucks Monopoly money of some sort onto the ground before a bellhop/horse jockey, half Nicolas Cage's size, brutally punches him in the face for a full minute. But thankfully, they flipped the beating the shit out of old men music back on, so it doesn't feel as messed up.
What was with that money, dude?
I don't know.
It looked like
paper,
Chinese money or something.
Yeah, it looked super fake.
It could be. Maybe it's, when they go into this place, they give them fun money so that they're not actually using real money, maybe. Sometimes you go to strip clubs and they give you $2 bills and stuff to spend because it's not real money, so you'll spend more.
I've done research, not knowing that we were going to have a movie set in Portland, but I did research a while ago, and that's true. They do give you $2 bills at strip clubs in Vegas, or not Vegas, in Portland.
Portland is the strip club capital of the world. Did you guys know that?
It really is. God bless them. I also got the weird sense that this dude beating him up may or may not have been the same actor that was in that burlap sack in Wicker Man, and solely took this role so he could beat the living shit out of Nic Cage for making that fucking film, which resulted in him being stuck in a burlap sack for probably hours.
What is it, a shark or something? I'll show you a shark, motherfucker.
After the ass whooping that makes Rob look even more bloody and disgusting, Edgar gives him the name Finway, who may have information on where he might find his pig, because having the shit beaten out of him made him respect Rob again.
Yeah, that was one of my few questions. Like, why did this make him give up the name?
I think it's because they make it very clear, like, you have no value, you don't exist, you mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
When he comes down there and all these people see him and they still respect Rob despite him being gone for 10 plus years, and they're willing to pay big bucks to beat the shit out of him.
And I think Edgar made a lot of money off of that little fight.
Yes, he had to, yes.
All right. So it was his way of bribing him, like, have all this money I just made you. Tell me where to find the guy.
I'll come down and get my shit kicked out of me just so that you can put value on my name again.
Yeah. And just to be clear, Edgar, I don't fuck with pig. Amir takes Rob to his apartment where Rob passes out on the couch. For once, he passes out on a couch and not a passing out chair. Just want to point that out to the audience. I was a little disappointed. While Amir stares at him in disbelief, having been a complete asshole for years to a man who is apparently regarded as a legend. I also like, now having seen the movie twice, I also like that particular scene because, as we'll soon learn, there's a little bit more that comes to this relationship and the impact that Rob unknowingly had on Amir's life, which we'll find out here pretty quick.
Act 2, The Conflict.
Part 2 of the film, titled Mom's French Toast and Deconstructed Scallops, begins with a shot of Rob's pig happily bouncing through the forest before Rob is woken up to the sound of a fire alarm going off. Amir, who works in the restaurant industry as a buyer, is absolute shit at cooking, which I thought was great. I don't know if his dad is good at cooking, but I just think it's funny that they showed that he's terrible at cooking. Even though he works in this industry that, Rob is, this master chef, and Amir is just burns French toast.
He's the ultimate bachelor.
Yeah, which is good. It fits the character again. He's a poser in an industry that he doesn't belong in.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, did he ever really want to be in the restaurant industry, or did he just do it because his dad does it?
Yeah.
And that's
it becomes clear as the movie goes on that it's the latter.
Yeah.
As we deconstruct his life.
But it also shows he's industrious because, he forged this little business that his dad had no interest in doing, and ended up turning a profit, and then his dad ends up tries to take over and stuff. But anyways, he does his best, and he gives Rob a plate full of, you guessed it, French toast. Each, there's the meals are in the titles throughout the whole thing, which I thought was kind of cool. Rob asks Amir if he knows Finway's place, and Amir explains that it's one of the hottest restaurants in town. Which is funny, because we soon find out that it's this pretentious, douchey place. Anyways, Amir then tells an important story about his parents. He tells Rob that they used to go out on date nights to different restaurants that usually ended up with them fighting. But on one of these dates, they came back incredibly happy and drunkenly talking about how great the food and the wine was. He goes on to say that they talked about the meal for years, even after the chef who ran the place just disappeared. And of course, this place was Rob's restaurant. Rob is kind of just sullen the whole little meal and just kind of looking down. And then he can tell by the way that Amir explains, the relationship between his parents, that something happened to his mom. And then Amir tells him that she killed herself. Because she was always melancholy and depressed and stuff, especially after fighting with his dad. Which after you meet his dad, you can kind of understand. Then Rob explains why exactly he lives in the woods by himself with a pick. He says every 200 years, Portland gets an earthquake that will level the city, and anyone who survives will be killed by the tsunami that follows. Oh, and one is due to happen anytime. Amir stares at him dumbfounded, and then Rob tells him how to improve his French toast. I thought it was funny, kind of the throwaway of obviously Robin had a mental collapse after, spoilers, what happens to his wife, and ended up leaving this life behind where he was a successful chef and kind of had his life all put together, and probably didn't appreciate it as much as he should have, and then kind of had this mental breakdown that caused him to believe that he was doomed if he stayed in that city. Which is probably just an excuse to not be in that place anymore.
I just love that scene of Amir speaking about the dinner and his parents thinking about it, talking about it for years. It really, in my mind, developed Robin a little bit more to show that he put so much passion into creating those dishes and all that work that it touched people. And so like you could see that, yes, he was probably a difficult person based off of some of the clues we've gotten from other characters, but when it came to cooking, like that was his true passion. That's what mattered to him, and it came through his food, to the point where you have these two people who can't stand each other. That's the one thing that they bond over, and I think that's like the acts have these names because like this as another theme that we haven't really touched on is like this whole movie revolves around like this food scene, and it's the memories that we create around certain meals, and. Yeah, it was very interesting to see, like, okay, not only was he a good chef, but, like, he was so good that these meals stuck with people. Yeah. And it wasn't and we later learned it's not these pretentious dishes that have become modern Michelin star. I
kind of feel like he might have been, might have run a kind of pretentious place, too. And, maybe that was, like, the little conversation that he has with the chef coming up is kind of like, I discovered this about myself, and I want you to know this before it's too late.
I guess you're right, because I guess like his version of pretentious was like classic high dining, based off the meal that he makes at the end, versus this now like deconstructing and
trendy,
like over the top this
stuff,
pretentious, new age cooking.
So another thing that happened a lot in particularly Parts Unknown was like when he would go to some of these restaurants where it was like really that's the theme of that restaurant.
Very Bourdain-esque.
I never got I didn't get the impression that he ran a pretentious place. I got the impression that he was always very genuine about his cooking, and other chefs didn't get that, but it could be either way. I like that it's intentionally vague. It's not you can piece together the general idea of what his life was like before this, but we're never explicitly told anything. And you don't need to just to get a sense of who he is now. It's fine. I think this scene was very important. I at this point when I was watching the movie, I was kind of like, where is this going? Like, what is going on? With it. But upon further reflection, I think it's great, and this is an important scene because it also shows him starting that, I think, to care about Amir more. Like actually, instead of just this is a douchey kid, basically. Like
he lets Amir in on the fact that he needs to get out of the city.
Well, also he now knows, as we learn later on, he knows who Amir is now. Like he remembers every dish he's cooked, so he knows who he's talking about and realizes that he served these people.
Oh yes,
and I think that's why he starts to soften to him in this scene. Not just like bringing up the whole thing about like the earthquake in Portland. I took as like it sort of suits he's got kind of a nihilistic attitude of like, we can all, and this becomes an important thing later on, but you can only care about so many things in your life. And in the end, it doesn't really matter because everything's doomed anyway. Like an earthquake's gonna wipe away the city, so everybody's cares are pointless. To a certain extent, all you can do is care about what you care about. But him connecting with Amir over this, you don't notice it at first. I didn't, but now looking back on it, when he just says like, hey, you should use stale bread for French toast. Like, he could have critiqued the fuck out of this guy who ruined French toast, which is a super easy dish to make. But he doesn't. He just gives him a tip and moves on. Which is also another thing like my wife brought up. People who are chefs, even just regular cooks, line cooks and stuff, don't often critique other people's cooking because they cook for other people so much that if somebody cooks for them, just the act of somebody doing that is really nice, and they'll eat almost anything put in front of them because, a lot of chefs will just go home and make like top ramen or something because they don't feel like cooking.
That's true.
Robin's different. Obviously, he enjoys the act of cooking and stuff to it, but I think that was a very human moment where this guy gives him crappy French toast and he just sort of eats it and doesn't tear into him about it, and actually gives him just a little tip.
There's a quick shot of Nick looking at this newspaper clipping, and it's Amir's dad. And so like that, because after seeing it the second time, I was like, okay, because I was trying to figure out like how does he piece everything together to get to that last scene, that dinner scene. And I was like, oh well, dude, they started laying out the breadcrumbs early. Like he sees this, he then hears that story about Amir, and he's like, boom, okay, so I know who your parents are. And I thought that was like a great foreshadowing, just great attention to detail on the writing and directing aspect of the film.
It's amazing how everything still ties so perfectly together, even though they cut an hour of the film out. You know?
Yeah, I really can't believe that. That's crazy.
So yeah, Rob spots that article about Amir's dad on the fridge, which I guess, you know, connects the face. So he now he remembers, oh yeah, that guy. While Amir psychs himself up in the mirror to try and get the reservation he told Rob would be no problem for him to get.
If you want some shit that's been sitting in a cooler for 3 days, then you go to my father. But if you want the real thing, then you come to me. I'm the king of the jungle.
Because he's such a big wig in the Portland food scene, you know. Right. Getting a reservation at Finway's place while listening to the same classical music accompanied by a British guy explaining why it's good that he cranks in his car all the time. Then we cut to the actual conversation, and he's ever so slightly less confident while talking to the guy who is apparently friends with the sous chef at Finway's place, who might be able to get him a reservation.
Just like a butcher or something.
Yeah, this guy's like so dismissive of him the whole time. The guy tells him he can't, since it's Amir's dad's spot, and the guy only agrees when Amir drops Robin Feld's name. So 15 years later, this guy is fairly young, and still even he knows who Robin Feld is. So it just goes to show you what a legend he was in the industry there. Rob takes a stroll through Portland and visits his former home. He hears some music coming from the backyard and heads to investigate, where he finds a little boy playing a handpan on the back steps. Rather than being horrified by the stranger who is filthy and covered in blood, he invites the potential child murderer to just hang out for a bit.
Kids are great.
Yeah.
You want to come sit down? He asks the kid what happened to the persimmon tree that used to be in the backyard, and this dolt moron kid has no idea what a persimmon is. I mean, read a fucking book, idiot. We, of course, all know that persimmon is an edible fruit related to the tomato that originated in the regions in and around China.
Of course.
Everybody knows that, you fucking dumb shit.
But you know what's funny is he makes that comment about, like, if they're not ripe, they taste like ass. And I immediately went back to that scene in Color Out of Space and just realized the plant had changed from tomato to persimmons.
Yeah, those were actually persimmons the whole time. They were just gigantic, and that's why they.
He just didn't know
ass.
that they were persimmons.
Yeah,
because he's such a terrible farmer.
So he was expecting them to taste like tomatoes, and they didn't. So he thought they were garbage.
This scene ends by the kid's dad walking out into the backyard to find his son sitting with a blood-soaked vagrant. Rob is shot on sight. Credits. Oh, wait, no, actually, next we see a waitress giving an explanation in the most pretentious way possible what the hell deconstructed scallops are. And she does it as such. We all have a set of beliefs about the world around us. To challenge them is to acknowledge our foundation is sand, but it opens up to something greater, to pure connection, to true life. Today's journey begins by uniting the depths of the sea with the riches of our forest. We've emulsified locally sourced scallops encased in flash-frozen seawater roe blend on a bed of foraged huckleberry foam, all bathed in the smoke from a Douglas fir cone. Oh man, I would leave immediately, dude. Like if somebody started talking like that as they served me this like dish of like garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bathed in pine cone smoke.
He's like, I just left the fucking woods. I eat this shit every day. I want some pub food.
Like she doesn't look at this guy and be like, maybe I should save this my opening lines for all of my meals here.
The restaurant is named Eurydice.
Yeah.
It's like some highfalutin mythological character.
We'll get into it, actually. It's Eurydice.
Yeah, Eurydice. Sorry.
Prob grabs one with his dirt-crusted fingers and unceremoniously pops it into his mouth, much to the waitress's chagrin. Rob asks to speak to the chef, and Amir tells him they need to keep a low profile because his dad sells to this restaurant, and he's not even supposed to be there. And Rob actually apologizes, which I thought was also kind of like, he started to actually give a shit what this kid has to say. Rob crushes the next scallop or whatever that was there with his thumb. While Amir tells him his dad has his own business and he has his, and that, someday Rob asks why he doesn't work with him, and he says, yeah, someday I will, once he's more established, or once I'm more established, to which Rob says his dad sounds like a scumbag.
It seemed like super backwards, too. Like, most people don't go do something else and then go work with their parents. Like, that was kind of weird. It makes sense now because his dad runs this whole empire or whatever, so maybe he wanted him to get set up on his own before he came and worked for him, but usually it's the other way around. Like, he works for his dad and then branches out on his own. But, like, I guess it fits his character because his goal is to work for his dad, and his dad won't let him. Yeah. But that's his goal. His goal is to work up to being able to work for his dad.
Yeah, he says later, like, he means well, and I'll find him someplace where he can be out of the way, and, like...
His dad just has no desire to be a part of his son's life.
Yeah. I've seen this written before, and I think it's true to life of, like, once your loved one dies, in some tragic way, sometimes you turn away your kid who reminds you of that person. And I think that's kind of what's going on here with Darius and Amir's relationship, is that he's kind of like, well, it's too painful to actually, spend time with you and look at you and care about you because you remind me so much of that person that I lost so tragically.
That's a good analysis of it. Fits the theme of how dealing with grief is the actual tone of this movie.
Yeah, kind of the overarching theme is like love and loss, and Chef Finway comes out and welcomes them to his restaurant, which is called Eurydice. Quick fact, the story of Eurydice goes as follows. Eurydice was the wife of musician Orpheus, who loved her dearly. On their wedding day, he played joyful songs as his bride danced through the meadow. One day, Aristeus, I think is how you say it, saw and pursued Eurydice, who stepped on a viper, was bitten, and died instantly. Distraught, Orpheus played and sang so mournfully that all the nymphs and deities wept and told him to travel to the underworld to retrieve her, which he gladly did. After his music softened the hearts of Hades and Persephone, his singing so sweet that even Irenaeus wept. I was so bad with these Greek mythology names. He was allowed to take her back to the world of the living. And there's another version of the story where, like, he walks through the underworld and is told, like, don't look back, because if you look back, she'll disappear and she'll be pulled back into the underworld. And he does so all the way up until the point where he's at the door to leave, and he doesn't believe that she's still behind him, so he turns around and she turns to smoke, and he loses her all over again. But I felt like...
I think that is more key to this story.
Yes. I feel like it's all very, like, they didn't just pull these names out of thin air, because Rob's place was also named after a Greek goddess, which we'll get to in a second. But I feel like that story kind of plays into Rob's story a little bit, with his wife playing music for him, and kind of a reverse of that. But then, he ends up losing her, and then kind of the story of the pig is kind of him losing love all over again. Yeah. So, layers. This movie's definitely got some layers. And I think that's why it's going to be a movie that endures for a long time. Amir asks about truffles, and the chef explains they are planning a winter menu with a few truffle dishes. And then Rob says he's looking for a truffle pig. And then Amir tells him, like, tell him who you are. And he turns and looks at the guy and reveals who he is, and the chef is shocked to see him. Probably more shocked by the state of him. Last time I saw you, you weren't filthy, with long hair and a huge beard and covered in blood.
Like, he's thinking he's a homeless guy. Like, how did this guy become homeless,
How did this guy get a reservation for my restaurant?
Yeah. It'd be like Wolfgang Puck showing up as, like, a dirty homeless guy. Like, what?
Seen you forever. I thought you had a place in Vegas.
How did you lose all your money?
He asks the guy covered in blood, who looks like he just rolled out of a dumpster, how he is. And asks how long he's been off the scene, to which Amir says 15 years. So now we know that it's been 15 years that Rob has at least not owned the restaurant, but potentially it's been 15 years that he's been living up in the woods there. And I thought it was funny. He asked him, like, do you need medical attention?
Yeah, do you need medical attention?
Which is like, there's only a few mentions of it. Like the hippie lady is like, you got something on your face there. He's got like a big gash down his head. And then this guy's like, do you need medical attention? He says Rob probably doesn't remember him, but he actually worked at Robin's restaurant called Hestia. Quick fact, Hestia is the virgin goddess of the hearth, the right ordering of domesticity, the family, the home, and the state. So Hestia is like this, comforting home, hearth, the family, all that kind of stuff. So it's like the polar opposite of the story of Eurydice. But it says a lot about Rob, because like his restaurant was named after this loving, domestic, bliss family love story, and Eurydice is named after this place that killed a virgin. I don't know.
Yeah, they went to hell.
Yeah. Rob says that he remembers him and that he fired him after 2 months because he always overcooked the pasta. Robin asks about the pig again, and Chef Finway gets super nervous when Rob gives him another patented Nic Cage glare. He says he has the utmost respect for Rob while admitting that he had at least some involvement in stealing the pig. Once Rob finds this out, he kind of slinks back in his chair and asks what the concept of this douchey restaurant is. The chef throws out a bunch more of just pretentious stuff about making local foods feel foreign so people appreciate them more. Rob shuts him down by asking why he never started the pub he always wanted to open. Then Rob cuts this poor doofus to the core of his soul in one of the best delivered monologues of Nicolas Cage's career.
Yes.
They're not real. You get that, right? None of it is real. The critics aren't real. The customers aren't real because this isn't real. You aren't real. Derek, why do you care about these people? They don't care about you. None of them. They don't even know who you are because you haven't shown them. Every day you'll wake up and there'll be less of you. You live your life for them and they don't even see you. You don't even see yourself. We don't get a lot of things in this world to care about. Which I think is really telling in a lot of different ways here.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like, Rob kind of talking about himself a little bit, and also talking about, this kid that he knew at one point that he saw potential in, but I think he kind of fired him because he's like, this kid obviously is meant for something else. He's not meant to work in this industry. And he went ahead and did it anyway, and ended up, making this place that sells this pretentious, terrible food.
Also, the acting of the chef, what was his name?
Derek.
Finley? Derek
Finway,
Finway, that's it. It's so good. The guy who acted that did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
And I saw some complaints that he was like overacting and like that took him out of the movie, but I think that was 100% the intent, because the guy is putting up this facade of cheerfulness and like, but the customers love this stuff. It's a fulfilling life, right? I didn't waste my life, right? Like doing this type of stuff. And Rob cuts through it immediately, sees through it, and tears him down. And you can see the guy smiling, but like his eyes sink behind him. You can see the pain behind it. It
goes from like this Cheshire cat grin to kind of like, you could just watch the life drain out of him as Nic Cage delivers this brilliant little monologue, which is easily like I think this is the most powerful moment in the whole film of like, I don't know, just the whole pretentiousness of this restaurant industry and him coming in here and just immediately like the whole scene is just him tearing down the facade of this whole fucking goofy little restaurant thing that they've got going on, where it's like, let's just make food that's just so pretentious and stupid, and like these tiny little portions, and I thought it was great.
And it's coming from the guy everybody adores as like the godfather of food, of cuisine in Portland or whatever. And like he's the one who's telling them this. Like, it's the pivotal moment. It tells you everything about Rob's character from that point forward, to understand everything that's happened before and everything that's going to happen in the rest of the movie. And it's just this one monologue that sort of does that, flips that switch. And now the movie is like, for me, that's what it is. Everything fell into place with what's been going on in the story and what happens as the story goes from that part. That's part of Rob, like, bearing his soul, I guess. He's so reserved for the rest of the movie. I think it's probably the most he actually says in the whole movie is that one monologue. But it says so much and helps you understand and contextualize everything that you're seeing, that it was great. I loved it.
Yeah. And kind of, it's like that little line of we don't get a lot of things to really care about, and like you could tell that his
character,
he doesn't actually care about the food that he's making. So it's like, you really cared about the pub, why don't you go do that? Why haven't you done that? Why did you spend your life pursuing this rather than what you were actually passionate about?
To the point where Rob asked him, like, what was that dish you were going to make? And the guy rattles it off immediately. He still remembers his favorite dish. He's just buried it while doing all of this crap. this shitty fake haute cuisine restaurant stuff that he's bistro pub, whatever he's doing. And Rob knows immediately that he wasted his life, basically. He should have done that instead.
Yeah. Tears this guy down in, like, what, 3 minutes?
He deconstructs him.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Then they both take a big swig of wine while Amir once again looks dumbfounded, and Derek finally lets loose who has his pig, which turns out it was Amir's dad this entire time who had the pig, who just paints him as such a scumbag. Like, his son has been building this little business on the side, and once it started to actually get popular and started turning a profit, he decided to take it over by stealing the guy's pig who was getting all of these great truffles. And, spoilers, it turns out it wasn't even the fucking pig. Yeah. That was he goes after so good.
Golden goose that's helping his son out.
And, like, what was he going to do with the pig? Like, was he going to find a different spot to, like...
I think he just wanted to cut off the source of his son's success. Like, I don't think he actually wanted the pig at all. He didn't seem... Which, I guess we'll get to it later. But it doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter to him, given how much he was offering to pay.
He just wanted to see his son fail.
Just wanted to see his son fail and get out of it, have to come back to dad so dad could get him a job working in an office or something.
Yeah. Or maybe he wanted him out of the industry altogether, and maybe there was actually some love behind it.
I think there is, in a twisted way. It's that, it's kind of, it mirrors Rob. Rob sees that Derek is meant for something else in life, so he fired him, hoping that he would find that path, and he didn't. Darius, his dad, maybe sees that his son is not cut out for this type of business, so he doesn't know how to lovingly support him into something else, and his son looks up to him and wants to be like his dad, so his way of guiding his son out is to make sure his business ventures fail, so he's forced into doing something else. Instead of the whatever dysfunctional relationship they have, instead of actually being like a normal parent who tries to help their kids succeed.
Yeah. It's a pretty messed up relationship.
Yeah, but again, it layers. It's these layers and mirrors between, like, Rob's relationship with Amir even is kind of similar. And Rob's relationship with Derek was like that, but in a maybe not as much of a supporting way. It sounds like it didn't work out for Derek. Maybe Rob could have had that talk with him 15 years ago and it would have worked out a little better for him. But
well, maybe Rob was a different person 15 years ago and had to learn some lessons along the way in order to impart this wisdom that he does.
Which we said, like, Rob and Darius are sort of reflections of each other. Like, maybe Rob was Darius or would have become him if, tragedy hadn't struck. And Darius has had his own tragedy struck, and maybe that's what turned him into what he is now.
Yeah.
It's these, like, little swirling patterns that reflect back on each other and weave really well.
Yeah, I feel like, all really great movies that endure are are like an onion. The more you dig into these, the more layers you discover. Which I think we probably haven't even scratched the surface of this, but I think it's one of those movies that will stand the test of time. People will look back on it for a long time, which is usually the types of movies that end up winning Oscars.
Fingers crossed.
At least in a Best Actor award. We'll just take that. Rob takes the news pretty well, though. He beats the hell out of Amir's car while demanding his dad's address before telling Amir that their business relations have concluded. All of that in a very screamy little moment where he's bashing the shit out of that piece of shit car that reflects everything he hates about the world.
Yep. He's also attacking the only thing Amir seems to care about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Rob heads to a nearby house and steals a kid's bike off of the porch, and then lets loose with the cagiest moment of this otherwise very uncagey film by screaming directly into the kid's face. I love that.
The twist
had
was-
enough.
Plot twist was that wasn't even the bike owner. That was just some guy that saw him taking the bike and he screamed at him.
Did you notice that they really don't show him riding the bike?
Yeah.
Because the next shot with him with the bike is him walking it.
Going
Somebody
back
watched
to
Wicker Man.
Wicker
I was gonna say, well, he must have watched Wicker Man. It's like, yeah, Nick, we're
I
gonna
don't think he
skip on
knows
the
how to
bike.
ride a bike.
We're gonna skip on you riding it.
that film.
If you do have to ride it, we're just gonna put it on a track.
He'll take archery lessons. He'll take stunt driving lessons. He'll take culinary lessons, but no one's going to teach him how to ride a bike.
What if that's like a conversation behind the scenes? Is like, no, I'm not going to ride it. I hate bicycles.
I'm too tall.
But you rode a motorcycle for Ghost Rider. Yeah,
ride
but
it again.
Bicycles, not a big fan. He heads to Rob's dad's place where things don't go great. But in the meantime, Amir goes to visit his still alive but seemingly, I guess, brain dead mom, who he talks to from outside the door because he's too afraid to even look at her, which I thought was pretty telling. I think there's a lot of little things like that just tell you who Amir really is. He's just kind of a scared person who hasn't really found his confidence yet.
Yeah.
He tells us. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we joke about this Nic Cage multiverse, and in an alternate universe, Nic Cage would have been the person going into that room and would have snuffed his mom's life out, like he did in Bringing Out the Dead.
Yeah, letting her go.
Yeah. I'm gonna clean out her trach. Gonna say goodbye.
Jesus. He tells his mom that he met the chef who made the dinner she loved so much, and says he thinks she would really like him or not. He's not sure. I get it for the purposes of this film, but did she really talk about that meal that much? Or is like, you remember that?
Like he mentioned, it's the last thing that she talked about where he remembers her being happy.
Yeah.
Before she
I
tried
think
to kill
that's-
herself.
yeah. So for him, it's a bigger memory than it probably is for his parents.
Especially
to
if
an
it was
extent.
15 years ago. I mean, the guy would have been, 10 years old maybe.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
a young kid or younger. A young kid remembering his mom being happy.
Yeah. He then says he wishes that Dad would just let her die. And then Nic Cage from Bringing Out the Dead enters the room, pulls the plug, and sticks all of the things onto himself, since the family won't let her die. He's interrupted by a nurse who opens the door, exposing Amir to the image of his mom in the bed on life support, which is too much for him to bear, and he leaves. This is kind of, we don't know for sure that she tried to kill herself, but I think that's what happened. Was like he says that she killed herself, but she's actually still alive. She's just kind of not really there anymore. Yeah, vegetable.
Yeah, which is basically dead to him.
Back at Darius's place, Rob asks for his pig back, and Darius says it's an honor meeting him and that his son isn't cut out for this business. He goes on to say that he didn't think his son's little truffle business would take off, but now he thinks it's time for somebody who actually knows what they're doing to take over. Darius offers Rob $20,000 to walk away, which he of course says no. And then Darius says everyone in the Portland restaurant biz are under his control, like it's one big mafia or something. So it's like, you live in my world now. Like, he tries to paint himself as this badass. Like, is he like Tony Soprano, and he just like goes around beating the shit out of people, you know?
So like,
It's a cutthroat industry.
Yeah. At first I thought, yeah, like, okay, he's trying to say he's this big time guy, but then later on, when the reveal happens, it made me realize that he was just putting on this facade to try, I think, to intimidate him, to just let it go, because we'll save the reveal for the reveal, but we already know, like, there's a little more to the situation than he wants to admit to. So I took it as like he's puffing up, just trying to scare Nic Cage. And then once again, you think like, okay, well, Nic Cage is gonna go John Wick on him.
Yeah,
he's gonna lose it and just start beating the shit out of this guy, kind of thing. But
it
doesn't go that way.
What you think is going to happen in Act 3 is so opposite of what actually ends up happening. And I think that was kind of the idea, is like, we're gonna make you think that things are going in one direction when things are actually going in a very different direction. He then says that he'll have $25,000 delivered to his cabin, and if he sees him again, he will chop the pig up into bacon. Finally, Rob asks him if he was always like this, or was it just after his wife died? To which he asks, "Were you?" Revealing that Rob's wife is actually dead. So he does know, he knows all about Rob. And apparently, investigated him even after he left, and I get the sense that he knew this whole time that it was Rob that his son was buying from, and probably actually was, he might have actually connected him to Rob in the first place. He's like, oh, I love this chef and his cooking, but now I know he's like living out in the woods, but apparently he's trying to sell truffles, and maybe I can have Amir go and buy truffles from him, or, whatever. I don't know exactly. You don't really get the sense of what the backstory is there, but it seems too perfect for it not to have been some sort of connection there. Rob heads outside where Amir is waiting for him.
And when he walks out, he does like the Arrested Development sad walk, where George Michael's like walking with his head down. He's doing the same walk.
Yeah,
the Snoopy music's playing in the background.
Yeah.
Which, in a certain way, he's kind of like resigned at that point of like, well,
yeah, like
guess I'm not going to get the pig back. But at least she's alive. Because he kind of confirms, like, I'll cut the pig up into bacon at that point. Spoilers for later. He apologizes for telling his dad about Rob and genuinely didn't know that he would take his pig. Rob admits to him that he doesn't need the pig to find the truffles at all, because he can just tell by looking at the trees and the lay of the land and stuff. Which I know is true. I've actually seen people who hunt truffles and they don't actually need the pig a lot of the times. It's just the pig is a kind of, makes it easier to find the exact spot. Yeah. Don't have to actually dig all around the tree. You can just, the truffle pig goes right to the source. Amir asks then, why the fuck did we do all of this? And Rob says,
I love her.
Casting doubt as to whether he doesn't actually fuck the pig. No.
I was going to make that joke, but I thought, maybe not.
I hesitated to even say anything because I'm like, we don't want to underscore this really poignant moment.
I mean, it really is a beautiful moment. And I feel like this is where their relationship really changes with Amir and Rob, and he kind of starts treating him like a son at this point. I mean, throughout you'll get into it with the breakdown stuff, so I won't say anymore, but you just see like their relationship finally becomes genuine at this point. Yeah. So
you kind of see that, I don't want to spoil anything, but like, that he lost one person, one important thing out of his life, but he gained something important too here, and he actually has a relationship with this kid now, and he actually begins to care about him. Suddenly Rob gets an idea, and he concocts a plan to get the pig back. He like writes down a list of items for Amir, but he has to use the phone, which he does surprisingly well. He just starts typing away. He doesn't scoff at it at all. But you know that he's probably never actually used a smartphone in his life. But yeah, he takes to it pretty well. While that's happening, Amir says that if the city floods, they can head up to Mount Hood, which Rob just dismissively says it's an active volcano. And then Amir says, I'm not moving to Seattle. And Rob says, fuck Seattle.
You know, having grown up on that side of Washington State,
yeah,
I can't blame them. I have the same feeling about Seattle. Fuck it.
Yeah. You know, somebody asked me, because I'm a big basketball fan. They're like, "Well, why didn't you just start rooting for the Trailblazers after the Sonics left?" And I was like, "I mean, the Trailblazers were like our biggest rival. It's not like you could just jump over and be like, oh yeah, now I'm a Trailblazers fan. Like, fuck no."
Fuck Portland.
Yeah.
Views not expressed.
Fuck
by, quick fact, when the characters are talking about Mount Hood and looking at it in the distance, the mountain is shown as being behind the West Hills of Portland. In reality, Mount Hood is on the east side of Portland, so that mountain was CGI'd in so that they could see it in the distance while they're talking there. So,
I thought that was weird.
Yeah.
That's a weird detail.
It's kind of an unnecessary thing. It's unnecessary to point it out, but I thought it worked for the scene, and I think they just wanted a little moment where Amir would like look over and see Mount Hood and be like, another little funny thing about Nic Cage or Rob's doomsday predictions and the reason he doesn't live in or around Portland anymore.
I also thought it was funny that the whole like fuck Seattle, like Seattle and Portland are like the same thing. Like,
they are.
They're like the same city. They both live on. I mean, Seattle's even going to be even more underwater when that earthquake hits because it's right on the water.
Yeah.
Mount Rainier is an active volcano right next to it. And there's Mount St. Helens, which is an actual active volcano. It's not that close, but it's there. So
but it's
like
just this active, there's this rival between Seattle and Portland.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that it's like all the shit he's saying about Portland, this could have been set in Seattle. It would have been the same thing.
Yeah.
There's also
really
all its problems. It's got its own Pioneer Square.
Yeah.
Robin Feld did everything he could to maintain his privacy, but wouldn't you know it, his buddy Amir didn't use a VPN on his phone, leading his dad's junky pig stealers straight to Robin's front door. Protect yourself from the Amirs of the world by giving your friends and family the gift of Surfshark this holiday season. Snag privacy on all of your devices for 83% off plus an extra 3 months for free by entering the coupon code ONECAGEPOD at checkout to protect yourself and your pig now.
Act 3, The Resolution.
The final part of the film. The final part of the film is titled A Bird, a Bottle, and the Salted Baguette. And it starts with Rob doing what he does best, leering through the window of a bakery. Amir meets with a woman named Jezebel who runs a nice little storage shed / mausoleum where she has been holding on to Rob and his late wife Laurie's stuff. She gives Amir a bottle of wine and then shows him the plot where Laurie's ashes are held and says that she saved the spot next to her for Rob.
Where do they keep her asses? In the
I mean, her ass would be in there.
Her ass is definitely in there. It's pretty hot.
Weird did that chick look like the costume designer from The Incredibles?
I thought she looked like the giant lady from Harry Potter, the one that's the headmistress of the French school.
Touche.
But yeah, she did also look like
Jezebel.
Edna Mode. Quick fact, the death date on Laurie's mausoleum, I don't know what those are called, where they keep the ashes or whatever.
It's like a plot or plate.
That might be.
I just dealt with this just not long ago about a spot in a mausoleum.
Yeah.
And they told me what it was, and I don't think it's actually called a plot. Write
thing
us
from
at
Phantasm.
one cage at a time, or onecagepodcast@gmail.com.
Anyway, the plaque with his wife's, with Laurie's birth and death on it, says she died in 2004, which would have been 15 years prior to 2019 when this movie was filmed. So
Okay.
there is a detail there that they actually were correct with their continuity. Back at the bakery, Rob looks around and says, "You made it a bakery," revealing that this used to be the restaurant that Rob owned.
Yeah.
The woman he's with, Helen, says, "You're a chef, I'm a baker," and that she kept it the same for years, hoping Rob might come back before turning it into bakery. Yeah, she probably worked for him, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It seems like, because she also calls him chef at one point. And she does there's a part where she stands up and she does the hands behind the back thing that
Yeah.
sous chefs do to their boss or whatever.
Yeah, it was a nice little accurate thing about chefs. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched like like those Hell's Kitchen or whatever. Those types of shows. They always kind of have that same stance.
It's like parade rest military stance type of thing.
Yeah, it's funny how like the chef lifestyle is almost like being in the military, aside from the drug use and the beating up of old men in the sub basement.
Paying to beat up homeless people. Rob asks her if she still makes her salted baguette. She says yes, and Rob asks for a loaf. She gives it to him as well as a treat of some sort, and he asks if he can have another one for Amir. It's not clear that he's giving it for Amir, but that was a nice touch that I did. She hands him the whole platter, and I really like the detail. He picks one up and he puts it down and he grabs another one. Like, he's still particular about the treats that he wants.
And he wants a good one for Amir, showing more kind of development between him and
Yeah. She gives him a hug and then says, "Bye, chef," while putting her hands behind her back, as if she still worked for him. He remarks that she got rid of the curtains on the windows he was leering through. She says Laurie always wanted to, and he says that it's better.
Yeah.
Easier to
I like
move through.
that little hug that she gives him. Like, he obviously doesn't show any kind of like affection back. He doesn't hug her, and I think that's also part of like his psychological break, is he has a hard time like being affectionate towards other people.
But he does it in other ways, I think. Like, he gets the treat for Amir. He compliments the removing the curtains. Like, you would think he nitpicks it, because he never wanted to get rid of the curtains. His wife did, but he tells her, "It looks better. Like, you did a better job with it." Like, it also mirrors when he goes back to his house and he's talking about the persimmon tree, and he asks where it is, and the kid says it's not there, and he's like, "Did they cut down the tree or whatever?" And it's more like, it's not a bad thing that the tree is not there. It's not his house anymore. It's just different.
He's like, that's okay. That's okay.
Again, it's dealing with grief.
Yeah.
Things, people move on, and it's okay. It's not a bad thing. He and Amir head to Darius's house, and Rob, at long last, washes some part of his disgusting body. He cleans his hands and then gets to work, carefully preparing the ingredients he and Amir gathered. He expertly crafts a dinner like he never left the business, with Amir by his side. Amir calls his dad into the dining room, who tells him to leave. Actually, he says, "You can leave," before Amir forcefully tells him to come eat dinner. So the dish that they're preparing is like, I thought it was duck, like they're cutting up birds of some kind. In the credits, it says that it was pigeon and champignon, so they were actually cutting up, serving pigeon, I think is what this was. And champignon means mushrooms in French.
Yeah,
So-
usually when I see pigeons on the street, I don't think, that looks like a delicacy.
It is in France.
Yeah.
It fits for the homeless guy.
Yeah, maybe that's all they could get on short notice, but
Just like in Vampire's Kiss, he went and like caught a pigeon on the street.
I'm a vampire.
I know what to do.
I've done this before.
Dirty, blood-soaked Chef Feld comes up Dirty, blood-soaked Chef Feld serves up dinner for the three of them, and within 3 bites and a swig of wine, the rush of emotions caused by remembering the only happy date night he and his wife ever had together at Hestia all those years ago becomes too much for Darius, and he runs into the other room to drown out the memories with some whiskey. So this movie had the same emotional climax as Ratatouille. That's all I could think when I was watching it. Like, have you guys seen Ratatouille?
Yeah.
The critic eats the ratatouille and it's immediately transported back to being a child and loving the dish. It's the same type of.
I mean, I think
same type of beats.
that is a real thing. Like, when I eat certain dishes, it reminds me of, if there's a meal that my mom made when I was a kid that I haven't eaten in 20 some odd years, and she doesn't remember how to cook it anymore. I've like asked for the recipe, but if I ate that right now, it would immediately take me back to being like 8 years old.
Yeah, same.
That's what happened to me recently. I finally got a hold of my grandma's, my deceased grandma's chicken and rice recipe that I had when I was a kid, that I haven't had since I was a kid, and I've been trying to recreate it with different chicken and rice recipes, and I finally got it from my stepmom.
Yeah.
The handwritten, she sent me a copy of my grandma's handwritten recipe.
That's awesome.
And I made it, and yeah, it was exactly as I tasted and remembered from being 4 years old or whatever. It's probably the last time I had it.
We have a potato salad that my stepmom made the whole time I was growing up, and she passed. It's been 5 or 6 years, but it had been probably a good 10 years before that since she had made it at any point. And like as soon as I made it the first time, because my dad gave me the recipe, and as soon as I made it the first time, I got like super like choked up. So like, oh shit, this tastes exactly the same as I remember. So I totally believe this this whole thing.
Yeah. Rob follows behind, and Darius screams at him to get out of his house. Rob says he remembers every meal he ever cooked and every person he ever served, leading us to believe that he must be like the Rain Man of cooking and cooked the exact meal Darius and his wife ate over 15 years ago. I was wondering, like, why the hell hasn't Darius told him to get the fuck out of his house? Like, as he shows up to serve this food, and he's like,
I wasn't sure on that, because I was like, he did tell him to like leave his house earlier, and like, if I ever see you again, I'll kill that damn pig. But then he just kind of was like,
that's an empty threat. So
yeah. But
maybe just like, maybe he was really hungry.
I got the sense that he wasn't there when they first showed up, and then he came in quietly and went to his little library study thing that he works out of.
Yeah, I also wondered that too. Like, did they show up while this guy was home and just cook in his kitchen and he didn't notice? Or it was a big house, so maybe they couldn't hear him cooking. But Darius asks Rob why he's doing this. Then he drops the bomb and admits to Rob that the junkies he hired to kidnap the pig were too rough and she died. You can't get good junkies these days. Do a job to save their life. Which, couldn't this guy just pay some people who weren't junkies to go steal the pig?
That's cheaper. I mean, he's a businessman, dude.
Yeah, but also he was willing to just fork over $25,000 just to get Rob to leave him alone.
I mean, maybe he gave those junkies, $20,000, and they ended up killing the pig.
That could be. Rob collapses to the ground in grief in another incredibly performed and emotional moment by Nicolas Cage. Bet you never thought you'd feel so sad for a man who lost his pig, did you? Let alone Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my takeaway. And the acting over it, it's silent. You don't actually hear him. It's like with Mandy, like when he's crying his heart out over the fire. You don't hear it.
Yeah. Which I thought worked really, really well,
Yeah, I think cutting audio out made that scene work and more powerful.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's because maybe they filmed it with audio and it just kind of ruined the moment, maybe. The crying kind of didn't come across as well as they wanted it to, but either way,
I think it's
really good.
Like in those kind of earth-shattering moments, like everything just kind of turns off, And I think that's kind of what they were going for there. And like everybody in that scene is feeling the weight of the realization that his pig died.
Yeah,
and
you can see he loses it. He's been standing strong the whole time, worried that this is going to happen, and as soon as he gets the confirmation of it, it immediately falls to the ground. He can't stand himself, can't support it up anymore. It's like he can't. It breaks the dam.
I love that. The performance of Nic Cage when he starts to tear up as he starts to realize what he's about to tell him, and then once he confirms it, then he just drops to the ground and breaks down. I thought that was so well performed, and by everybody in the scene. Even Amir is just kind of off in the back, and you can feel him feeling the same emotions, where like tears are starting to roll down his face too, and even Darius, you can tell that he feels genuinely terrible for what he's put this man through.
It's a very interesting scene because you have these three men who have all experienced the loss of somebody that they love, and I think like you get the sense that it's so heavy for Darius and Amir, because they this meal for Darius, he's reliving this meal that he had, which was one of the last great memories he had with his wife, and then for Amir, it's him feeling the loss of his mom, and then obviously for Nick, it's for Robin. Robin has concrete evidence that she's dead, and you just have these three men just sharing this emotional ball that has been woven together from the start of this film, and it just the performances were so good, and everything just tied together, and it just, I mean, shit. And then like the sound cutting out just kind of, at least for me, allowed me to project my own emotional feelings onto that scene. And I think that's what made it more powerful for myself. Is it's like everybody's been in that situation where they have terrible news delivered to them, and then everything, like you said, everything just goes quiet.
Yeah.
And you're left, like you're
The
left
world
with your own
fades
emotions.
away.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie is such a like perfect example of like, it doesn't need to be a complicated story. It's a very simple story. It's just if you let your actors live in that world, and like it can be something as trivial as like a pig, you know, just like it just works so perfectly, and like it's so like when on the surface, like when I saw the trailer the first time, I was like, oh god, here we go. It's a goofy Nic Cage movie where he's hunting a pig and then killing a bunch of people because they stole his pig, which I thought it was exactly what it was, and I think that's what a lot of people thought it was. But then it turns into this.
I thought it was from the description, but that trailer had me thinking it was going to be closer to what it actually is. Just the tone they took with it. But I don't think a lot of people did. I think a lot of people just were like, "Oh, we're just gonna go John Wick on these guys. It's gonna be Farmer John Wick." But also, I think the whole reason he cooked the meal was this pig meant everything to him, and Darius didn't understand. So he took this thing away from somebody who loved it, and so he was reminding him, reconnecting with him, like having him re-experience the loss of his wife is what allows him to emotionally connect and break down and actually tell Rob this horrible thing that he's done to him, and he finally understands how horrible it was of a thing. I think that's why it works with all three of them experiencing their own loss in that scene. Just around a guy losing his pig. And also it's like when he flips that switch and he just comes all crashing down and he falls down, it's like he knew that's what was going to come, because he's had loss before and he's been holding it back, not allowing himself to feel it, because he knows, I mean, if you've gone through loss, you know what it feels like, and you will do everything you can to avoid feeling it again, even when you know it's coming. And I think that's what that's what I got from that scene, is that's why it was so sudden. He's been holding that, ready for that dam to break as soon as he got concrete confirmation of it. Fighting like hell not to have to feel that again. And the drop of a hat, he does. Amir drives Rob home, and they stop at the diner close to his cabin, and they share a somber moment. Rob says if he had never come looking for his pig, in his head, she'd still be alive. Amir says, but she wouldn't. And Rob says, no, she wouldn't. Like, he realizes that it's a foolish thing to hide grief and loss like that, because it's just going to happen regardless. Like, that's the emotional climax of the movie, and the end of Rob's journey is that part of it right there. It's like, you can tell, and you can tell from the start, he hasn't, my experience of it, he hasn't listened to that tape from his wife. He won't let himself, because in his head, if he does, then she's actually dead. And he's, and he realizes, like, he can't fight that off. It's a real thing that happened. That's the whole point of this movie, is him going back to these old places of his life and seeing how things have changed and moved on, and being okay with it, and realizing he needs to do that for his wife. And that pig was a catharsis for him.
It was a crutch. The pig was a crutch to kind of keep him, grounded to reality throughout all of that. Even though he's just this stinky hobo living in a freaking hut in the middle of nowhere, he's still like kind of holding on to the love that he used to have.
All he has is memories of these people, but they're perfect memories of them. And he's kind of cursed with that. He can't go back and make new ones, or, continue to live his life with them. That, to me, that was the saddest part of the movie. It's like, everybody wishes, when somebody's gone, all you really have left are the memories. But it was like, I never really thought about how much torture it would be if you had perfect memories. Like, you could relive any of those moments, but you know that you can never get any more of them. Sorry, it's making me choked up a little bit.
I also like, I do love that, going back to the conversation that they have about, is it better to stay ignorant to something than to actually acknowledge it. Because if you're ignorant to it, then you don't have to process it.
Yeah.
And, having to, admitting that it's true and accepting it, then you're supposed to then be able to process the grief. But his character has cut himself off. Even though he's accepted these things, he still hasn't allowed himself to process the grief, which I guess is what kind of made that scene of him breaking down even more powerful, because he, like you said, Nigel, he does finally acknowledge that this is the thing that he had a feeling was going to come of it, is that she was dead, and he accepts it and processes it. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm a little optimistic here for his character's outcome, but I think that might be the beginning of his journey to finally coming to terms with his wife's death.
Yeah,
and
I think that's the point of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a happy ending in that it's not really happy, but it's a resolution that's necessary, and you feel better for him because he's not gotten to that point. He's been living at the point before that for the last 15 years, which is just emotional torture. So anyway, Rob decides to walk home from the diner, but he shakes Amir's hand and tells him he'll see him Thursday. Again, you move on. You go back to some things change, some things don't. He's going back to the truffle life, I guess. Amir turns off the How to Enjoy Classical Music for Dummies and breaks down in his car. Yeah, so it's like he doesn't... That's Amir's moment of like, I don't need to be into classical music like my dad is or whatever. I just need to, grieve for my mom and make my own life. Like, that was my takeaway from that scene.
Also, I feel like he finally got to see who his dad was. And he had to admit, and once again, he had to accept that that's who his dad is. His dad's this awful person. Yeah. He had to accept it. He's forced to finally accept it now. He doesn't want to model his life after his father. Yeah. And this is, like, once again, being optimistic, this is the opportunity for him to now create his own image and hopefully get some confidence by becoming his own person and not trying to, not trying to follow in his dad's footsteps and essentially just become like his dad.
Plus, he breaks down in his car, which is like the only thing he likes.
Man,
so,
he
could have been it. He actually does care about the Camaro, and that's realized. Like, that's his comfort. Maybe it's not a superficial thing. It's something blanket. He likes.
Yeah, I want to see a sequel where Rob and Amir take over that diner, and they work together.
Pie? We don't do pie.
We do pie now. God damn it.
Amir, we do pie now.
Oh, that'd be great. That would have been a great, like, post-credit.
Yeah, they buy the restaurant.
Buy the restaurant together. And
this random shitty trucker diner and turns it into a nice little wholesome place.
A little cool. Awesome spot along the freeway or the highway or whatever.
Rob finally washes his damn face with creek water, but still, it's a bookend to the story. Yeah. The movie opens on a shot of the creek looking down, and it kind of ends with him washing the filth and grime of this whole journey off. Symbolic.
Yep.
He sullenly does the Arrested Development sad walk back to his cabin, surrounded by infinite loneliness with no pig to welcome him home. And he summons the courage to pop the tape his wife made him in and listens as she explains that before they go to a fancy restaurant for dinner, where he'll probably complain about the food. So again, he used to complain about this shit. He probably retroactive
more trivial stuff.
Yeah, he's not complaining about Amir's shitty cooking. She wants to play him a song for his birthday, and she says she loves him, and the song reminds her of him. And then she plays a song called "I'm on Fire" by Springsteen. Is it a Bruce Springsteen song?
Not sure. I'm not sure.
As Rob takes off his boots, takes a look at the empty bed where his pig once slept, and then looks up to the heavens. The end.
Yeah. So they're up there together.
God, dude, he had to give you one last punch in the gut. That close.
That look when he looks up to to the ceiling. Yeah. It's not like a fun, happy movie that you're going to want to watch over and over and over again, but it is a little masterpiece.
Amazing
little film that, I'm guessing Didn't cost a whole lot of money to make, but it makes an impression, and will stick with you. I think it's going to stick with me for a long time. I'm sure it will with you guys. And I think it's pretty amazing that in 2021, Nicolas Cage, who has been, kind of the butt of jokes for quite a while here, has turned in a performance that might win him his second Oscar, almost 30 years after the first one. So, yeah. Who would have thought?
I know, it's crazy. I never thought I'd be tearing up at talking about a Nicolas Cage movie.
Yep.
We have a Coppola questions before we move on.
I don't have a whole lot. I feel like this movie was almost spot on perfect. More of my questions are kind of like, who exactly was this person to them, and what's going to happen in the future. So, first off, I did have a question, and one thing that kind of pulled me out, and we kind of talked about it, but the restaurant fight club, just felt so kind of out of left field. But at the same time, it was symbolic in a lot of different ways, and I think it does kind of show you who these restaurant people are and this weird industry. And I think it kind of also speaks to Darius and like the world that he is in control of, and he knows all about Edgar's weird fight club, obviously, and Edgar as a person, and what a pile of shit he probably is. And I think it just breeds awfulness between all of these restaurant people, which I guess is pretty true to life. But I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that little fight club thing.
Yeah, I questioned it when I saw it, but as the movie culminated, I crossed it off my list because I was like, I feel like I have a personal explanation for why it's in the movie, so it wasn't as much of an issue for me. And it's everything we've already talked about. Yeah, it's to set up the expectations of like this gritty underbelly, but also like make you think there's going to be some violent showdown in the movie, but there isn't. But also like just to show, I think that Rob is he's been an emotional punching bag. He's been kicked, run through the ringer and stuff, and he will physically get run through the ringer if it means that he can get his pig back. It doesn't mean anything to him.
He'll do anything to get his pig back, just to feel love again.
Yeah, and you would think in a movie, a lot of the modern movies, doing anything would mean he'll kill anybody to get his pig back or whatever. Like that's the expectation that audiences might have, and it's the opposite. It's he'll let people beat him up just to get the pig back. He doesn't care. That's what he cares about. Yeah.
Who do you think Helen is to Rob? I mean, I assume that she was maybe like his head, sous chef or something, worked in the restaurant with him. But, I felt at the very beginning, like especially the first time I watched it, when I first saw her, I thought, oh my God, this is Rob's long lost daughter, and he's been ignoring her for the last 15 years. But no, I think it was somebody who worked for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was definitely someone who worked for him. I thought the same thing. They were setting up as his daughter, but then obviously they didn't go that route with it. But I think it was, my question was whether or not she was like a baker that worked for him, or she was a baker that he sourced his baked goods from, or if she was just a regular sous chef. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think maybe she had just been a sous chef, and she found her calling, which was actually baking. Yeah. And so she converted it into a baker. She tried to keep it a restaurant for a while and ended up essentially doing what I think Rob would approve of, which is finding her calling as a baker and doing that instead, which is also why he doesn't mind that she converted the place into a bakery, because unlike Derek, she did what she was meant to do.
I was going to say, totally echoes Derek's, like, he didn't accept who he actually was, but Helen actually did. And turned this world-class restaurant that she didn't feel comfortable being a chef at into what she actually wanted it to be, which I guess,
a humble bakery.
Hopefully is what Derek ends up going on to do, or maybe it's too late for Derek.
Make his pub. I assume that she had to be his right hand, and that's why, because why I'll say I kept it the same way, hoping you'd come back. I mean, because she would have to be skilled.
She got the restaurant somehow.
Yeah, she'd have to be skilled to keep it running, which means that she had to be his sous chef and his right hand.
And he left the restaurant to her.
Yep, and he left it to her. And then when she finally admitted to herself, like, I don't enjoy cooking, I enjoy baking. That's my passion. And then she transitioned it into a bakery, which, like you guys said, is exactly the perfect thing that she could have done in his eyes, because she was being true to herself and following her passion instead of creating these pretentious fucking shitty meals.
Deconstructed scallops.
And pinecone smoke.
Do you think Darius still gave Rob the $25,000 that he said he was going to give him?
No, I don't think Rob would have taken it anyways.
Yeah. He doesn't care about
means
material.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
kind of
needs his weekly delivery of groceries, and he said,
Yeah.
I feel like
kinda
he
think
might
they-
try to give it to him, and then Rob would be like, "Take your money and go fuck yourself."
Yeah, so I kind of feel like as they do that panning shot of him coming back at the end, and it comes into his cabin. Like I felt like there was a reason why they showed the inside of his cabin. You know, the jarred vegetables that he had, his cooking gear, to establish like this is the life he's going to continue to live. He has no interest in going back to that world now.
Yeah.
He's gonna find peace. Like he's gonna transition and be able to finally accept the death of his wife and move on and hopefully have a little bit of a happier life out there.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty true to life, where there's just a bunch of junk all over the yard and tarps and stuff. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what that place would look like.
"Oh yeah,
Yeah.
go out in the backwoods, Pacific Northwest, and you'll see that."
Yeah, everywhere. Why does everybody need so many damn cars in their yard? Why?
Because cars are actually really hard to get rid of if you ever try to, I guess.
I always kind of felt like it was like, if you're really poor, you just hold on to everything so that in case you need a part or something, you just keep those cars. But like, it's always these like kind of shanties in the middle of the backwoods that have a million cars parked in the back.
Do you think that he got another pig at the end? Like, is that what the credits were about, or was that just him reminiscing?
I don't think so.
Hearing the pig snort.
I don't think so. I feel like, the kind of climax there is he lost his pig, but he found a friend, and I think he's going to be friends with Amir, and maybe he develops that relationship more, and maybe, like I said, maybe they open up that truck stop, buy out that truck, take that $25,000 down payment on that truck stop, and start.
They could be on Triple D if they do that.
Yeah.
Oh, Guy Fieri, and I'm out here in the middle of the woods in Portland.
He once was a big-time chef in Portland, but he left it all behind to open up a truck stop.
How awesome would that be?
That's the sequel. It's all shot through Guy Fieri's eyes, though.
Oh, shit.
It's time for the trackers.
This is super easy. There were 2 fucks that he gives in the movie. Gives 2 fucks.
Which, his character kind of only gives 2 fucks.
Yeah. First one is I don't fuck my pig, and the second one is fuck Seattle, which are both poignant statements that the movie makes. That's it. That brings us to a total of 123 fucks, which is still the reigning swear word by far. Second amount of swears is God. Shit, with 26. So we have almost 100 more fucks than we do the next highest swear. So our total is 237 curses.
Stay out. 237. Stay out. Shiny. Sorry.
We're going to got it.
On the nudity side of things, there was none whatsoever throughout this whole movie, which is not surprising. A little think piece indie film wouldn't have a bunch of nudity in it. For states and countries, we're still in America here. Went to Oregon, so we have a new state. So what is that, 9, I think? California. So we have California, New York, Washington, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Illinois, Ohio, Nevada, and Oregon. So nine total states so far.
Nice, almost 20% through the roster.
Yeah. I'm wondering if we're going to hit all of them. Budget, I could not find it anywhere. This is the only movie that I wasn't able to find a budget for, which I'm not really sure why. Maybe they just didn't feel like they needed to release it, or maybe it was just because of how small this movie was.
Like, Mandy was $5 million. I can't imagine
yeah.
this being more expensive than Mandy. So.
No, and it's shot in 20 days, so
Yeah.
I would assume this was a relatively cheap movie, and maybe that's why they didn't release the budget, was because the budget was so small. And I know sometimes they like actually tack things on later on to make the budget work for the Hollywood fudging of the numbers and all that kind of stuff. So maybe marketing and maybe the budget isn't fully finished yet because they haven't done a physical release and all that kind of stuff yet. So yeah, maybe for what they projected, they just haven't finished. And eventually maybe I can add that back in later on. But it made $2.9 million, and it's fairly short theatrical run. I'm proud that I contributed some of that to the theatrical run. On the rating side, this was an R-rated. It did get a rating, unlike many of the movies that we've done so far. So
Yeah, I was going to say.
we've got 5 R-rated movies, 5 unrated movies, and 3 PG-13s. Let's jump to the kills. I would imagine your section was pretty light.
My section was super light, so we have 0 kills.
Yeah, pretty easy for all trackers.
Yeah.
No deaths, and unfortunately no resurrection.
Where does this masterpiece fall? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
All right, this is the part of the show that I've been looking forward to the most. That I can't wait to see what our final tally is. But let's start with Vince as usual. Where do you rate Pig on your Cageometer?
We talked a lot about ratings and 10s and all that. Like when do we give it? Like all that stuff. So I kind of went back and forth on this, but I got to give both the movie and his performance a 10. For me personally, I felt like this film was probably one of the most perfect or close to perfect films I could possibly or that I personally have seen in a long time. And then the performance from Nic, same thing. I think this is, I thought Mandy, he did a great job at Mandy. Like that was one of my favorite performances, but I think this was a whole different level. I know you and I talked a little bit about it, Patrick, earlier, but he didn't have to do a lot, or it came off as if he wasn't doing a lot, but there was so much that was going on behind his choices. Just emotions that he brought to the grief scenes and things like that. It's kind of, I think, really solidified a 10 in my mind for him. Like going back to the movie, just the themes that they focused on and nailing them. The theme of loss and grief added on to isolation for his character. I think they all spun. It all crafted this story that played out very well. The pacing was phenomenal. The acting in this movie from everybody was phenomenal. I love that they let the actors just develop these scenes and play through the emotions. We talked a little bit about it between him and Derek, and him being accused of overacting, the actor being accused of overacting, but you're seeing this guy who is being faced with the reality that he might have wasted his life. He didn't chase after his true dreams, and you see that facade start cracking, and this guy starts having a breakdown. He's being told by somebody that he idolized, like, hey, you wasted your life because you created this fake environment, this fake restaurant, this fake food, and these people don't care about you. You could have had genuine connection with them if you had gone and opened a pub, and you still would have created great food, but you would have been able to create memories and all these other things. And, you just see this actor just break down, and they weren't afraid to just hold it on that actor and let him deliver that performance. And then same with scenes with Amir, when Amir is talking about the meal that his parents had, they just hang on it. The scene in the bakery where he's talking to her, or where they're talking, and they just do this very slow push in on them, and it's framed so well with the counter and everything, and it's lit beautifully. And they just allowed the actors to develop these scenes and develop the emotions, and I think that's what added a lot to it. They take this story that's a very simple story, like we talked about, and could have gone off the rails and been a John Wick parody, right? But they keep it grounded, and they weave these characters' lives together so well, and you're not expecting it. At least I wasn't from the beginning. That by the end of it, you would genuinely feel bad for all three of these guys, right? And just like the writing was done so well. It felt grounded. There was, the Fight Club stuff was a little weird, but you accept it because everything else fits so well, and the relationships they allow the characters to develop over the time, and the relationships develop. And by the end of the movie, you have somebody who was, and we've all been there, and I think that's kind of where it hit for me. It's like we've all been in that part of our life where we're trying to ignore the grief that we need to process, and he goes through this journey and finally has to acknowledge the death of his pig, which then forces him to acknowledge the death of his wife, because very clearly at the beginning we learn he hasn't accepted it, and it's been 15 years since she passed. And he finally gets that outbreak, and he's finally going to process it. And I think it's just beautifully written, and the ending is nice. It's not like this happy-go-lucky moment, but it really is. I believe that last shot of him looking at the bed and then looking up is him finally accepting the loss of his wife, and it came through the companionship of his pig. And I mean, I know a lot of people feel the same way when they lose their animals. Like so it's just like they hit on all these levels, and it worked really well. And then Nick, like I said, he didn't overact anything. Even that scene where he's kicking the shit out of the Camaro could have easily, once again, like Mandy, like it was just reminding me of that scene in the bathroom with Mandy. Like those could have easily been like super cagey moments, but the grief and pain you hear in him screaming, it just grounds it again. Because like this is a man who's on the verge of what he thinks is getting his pig back or getting the answer, and he's clinging to hang on.
Yeah,
and
he felt betrayed by the person that he had slowly started to care about.
Yes, and that's another thing too. Is like now he's having to face the reality that this guy betrayed him. Because Amir makes it a point to say, I never told my dad about you, and then you find out he did. And Nick's not dumb; like he knows he did. But I mean, he didn't have to do a lot. He didn't have to over project anything. His subtle performance, it comes off as subtle, but there's so much weight behind it. That I gotta give him a 10. I'll give both the movie and his performance a 10. And we've seen quite a few movies in this first season, and I think this is by far the best. And I think the reason why a lot of people are so positive on it is because it's kind of the perfect film for the time that we just came out of with COVID. A lot of people having to deal with isolation and grief and loss, and I think this is just a beautiful way of showing how people process that stuff, and it's not always going to be in the most healthy manner.
Yeah,
and I think people can really connect with the character and his feelings. So I'm excited to see what you guys think.
I'm like super excited to see where this guy, his career goes. What he's going to do next. But, let's jump over to Nigel. Where does Pig rate on your Cageometer?
This one I struggled with briefly as the movie was going along, but by the time the credits rolled, it was absolutely no contest in my mind that it's a 10 out of 10. It was not even like I didn't have to. I was trying to find nitpicks to bring the score down, and I realized that's a really stupid thing to do when gut feeling wise the movie felt absolutely perfect to me. Throughout the first act, I didn't quite feel that way because I wasn't quite sure where we were going or what we were doing with it, but that's, I think, intentional. As the movie goes along, it sets up this pretty straightforward premise with an increasingly bizarre path that you're going down to it, but it starts to cycle back within itself and tie itself together as you go along, and you realize as the movie is going on that what it's trying to tell you that you've been absorbing the whole time without even realizing it, and does it masterfully. And I think that's another, like, that's a way that how our psyches work. They process through things without us even realizing we're processing it. And by the time they do realize is when you have a breakthrough, you realize that you've been dealing with something all along. Yeah. Super vague, but I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it does.
And again, we've touched on it briefly before, but the whole food aspect of it is, this movie works perfectly well as a deconstruction of a revenge plot type of movie that we would both associate with Nicolas Cage because of his more recent movies and just with Hollywood movies in general. Like I said, it was intentional. This was set up with the exact same premise as John Wick. There's a loner guy getting over the loss of his wife with an animal companion who is taken from him, and he sets out on a path to get it back or get revenge. And it turns out that, he's super revered in his old lifestyle. Everybody knows who he is and is in awe of who he is. And it's because of his old lifestyle that he's experienced the loss of this animal. That's the same premise as John Wick has, but it goes in a completely different direction. Yeah. And I think it sets you up with that, expectation just to, I don't want to say subvert it because that's kind of a meme now, even though I don't inherently think subverting expectations is bad like some forms of the internet do. But it deconstructs it and it breaks your barriers down and hits you with something you weren't expecting if you were along for the ride. It's a great examination of grief and dealing with that and just humanity in general and how we deal with other people and with tragedies. And I think the overall message of you only get so many things that you really care about in life. If you really think about it, if everything was taken away from you, there's only a handful of people you probably really care about, and they're not even things, they're people, or animals. And that's really all that matters. And experiencing it through the eyes of Rob, who is a man who's lost everything he really cared about when the movie starts, and then loses the final thing he actually cares about, is very tragic, but also very poignant. It's a theme that's stuck with me since I saw it last night. It's going to stick with me for a while. The movie as a whole will stick with me for a while. It's one of the best things I've seen in the last decade, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an easy 10 out of 10. I can't find flaws with it. Like you said, I'm really surprised that they cut an hour out of this movie because I don't know what they could have shot or added and then taken out and still be left with this hour and a half movie that feels like it's perfect for what it is. The runtime of it is perfect. The script perfectly tells a story they want to tell and deals with the themes that they want to deal with or that they want to present and gives us the characters they wanted this to have. So it's super surprising to me that they did that.
With 20 days of shooting, how did they end up with a 2.5 hour movie?
Right.
What else did they shoot? I mean, maybe they just stretched out the scenes more and
could be. Or they added some more backstory or something and realized that we don't really need it.
Yeah.
If there's just enough to get the backstory of Rob and of Amir and of Darius that it suits the purpose. So and also on that note, with Nicolas Cage's performance, again, it's an easy 10 out of 10. There were multiple times throughout the movie that I forgot I was looking at Nicolas Cage, and I had to remind myself as I was looking at him that is Nicolas Cage, and I still couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Because all I saw is his character of Rob that he not just embodies, but presents to us without using dialogue a lot of the times. Like, you can see on his face everything that he's feeling, and somehow there's still more going on beneath the surface that you can't see, that It's this weird mix of sympathizing with him and knowing that there's more going on beneath the surface, but he somehow projects it perfectly. You can read it on his face while also being enigmatic and captivating.
Yeah.
And it's similar to Mandy, and even in some cases Willy's Wonderland, where we've talked about he can play a character who doesn't talk for a lot of the movie and still has a presence. And his presence in all three of those movies is completely different from each other. But I think in this one, it's a perfect representation of that character. Like I said,
just think of those three movies and just think of the range that he has. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest things about this movie or this show. It's he's so different in everything he does, and vampires kiss versus pig, just think of the differences in his performances and And
I think that's people who watch this. I think a large part of the audience might be reminded of the fact, or be learning from this movie, that he is a fantastic actor when he wants to be. And I think I actually read that Ethan Hawke did a Reddit AMA. I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but somebody was talking about how a movie he did with Nicolas Cage, that Lord of War. They were talking about his favorite scene was some scene he did with Nic Cage in Lord of War, and he said that Nicolas Cage, as far as he's concerned, is the only actor since Marlon Brando who's actually done anything different with the art of acting.
Yeah,
brought something new to the table and tried to do a different approach to acting. Which is insane if you really think about it.
That's why, the big reason I wanted to do this show is like, we're definitely not reinventing the wheel by sitting here talking about Nicolas Cage, but I feel like a lot of the shows that talk about Nicolas Cage is just, oh, look at this goofy guy doing this goofy stuff, and look at all these crazy things he does, and look at that face he made, and like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, there's something so much deeper to Nicolas Cage that I think a lot of people miss, and I think it's sad and tragic that like he doesn't get the praise that he really deserves. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and you can see it. Like, just look at the 13 movies that we've done so far. They are so different from one another. When Tom Cruise is in a movie, it's Tom Cruise. It's just, there's Tom Cruise is in the movie. He's playing Tom Cruise.
Oh, look, there he goes running again.
He's running. When Nicolas Cage is in a movie, you don't know what to expect. I mean, it's different every time out. And I mean, this movie is a perfect example of like, did you think after watching Willy's Wonderland that you would see a performance like this from Nic Cage ever again? Like, I mean...
And it's like in the line, like, the fact that you can spend most of the movie just watching him non-verbally having this on-screen presence with this character and somehow embodying this character that we don't really know, but we feel like we fully understand.
Yeah.
To switch to the one scene where he delivers the monologue to Derek in the, his probably his main speaking scene in the movie, to have such a poignant, well-acted, spot-on delivery of the theme and the message of the movie on who that guy is as a character, I felt like I was watching Nicolas Cage tell me that himself in person, and it felt so heartfelt and sincere that if that wasn't him actually carrying those thoughts, he perfectly portrayed the fact that Rob believes these things and is so adamant about it, and that we should believe it too, because it's a universal message that I think everybody needs to be reminded of, and that you need to do what matters to you, and don't present a false front or false facade or face, because nobody will get to know who you are in life unless you show them. And unless you are sincere about it. And even then, they're probably still not going to know the real you. So all that really matters is doing what you like and caring about the things you care about, because the things that you care about are a gift.
Yeah.
And you don't get them forever. You will lose some certain things in life, and that's just part of it. Which means that the things that you care about, you should care about all the more, because they're fleeting.
And I think that's, Nicolas Cage in general is like, he doesn't give a shit what people think about him, and that's one of the things I love about him so much. Is like, what's he going to do this time? Is he going to do a kung fu movie that he's fighting aliens? Is he going to do a movie where he's fighting animatronics? Is he going to do a movie where he's so poignant and heartfelt talking about a pig? Like, it's just. He does what he wants to do. And I think that's kind of the whole message of this movie, is like, you should do the things that are important to you while you can.
Yeah. And I think he cares about the craft of acting.
Yes.
In the same way that Rob cares about the craft of cooking, and it's, you can pour your heart and soul into what you do in a career or hobby, or you can devote your life to people you care about or the loved ones that you have, and it doesn't matter. That's all that life really is, and that's all it should be. And to me, it's like, it's also verification for just doing this show. Who cares if anybody even watches this show?
Yeah, who cares?
We want to do it. we want to have fun with it. We want to bare our souls to people when we talk about these movies. That's what makes it a valuable thing.
Yeah, and it's just fun for us to get together and have a reason to spend time with each other. It's almost like 90% of the reason we're doing it in the first place is just to hang out with each other and have a reason to get together all the time.
So again, flawless movie for me. Flawless performance from Nic Cage. Masterpiece. on both fronts. And I did not expect that a month ago when I first heard about this movie.
I don't think any of us did.
Same. Like when I started seeing the reviews coming in and they were like in the 90s, I was like, oh, well, that's going to change. It's going to drop. And then it just kept getting higher. Like it started out at like a 90%, and then it was like 92, and then a 94, then a 97. I'm like, people are like really loving this movie. And that was, when I saw that trailer, when I heard the synopsis, that was like the point when I was like, oh, here we go. I can't wait to see this craziness, And
I really think the people who don't like it are the ones that were expecting a John Wick style movie and didn't get it, and they just, personal preference, didn't like what this movie was, I guess. But again, the movie was doing what it was trying to do. Like it was, that's the whole point is, I don't really know if I'm coalescing those thoughts properly, but I'm just trying to find out why somebody could dislike this movie. I know from a personal level you might dislike it because it's not your cup of tea, but I think just the execution of the movie was perfect.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like these types of indie think pieces and stuff, and I get that, but at the same time, it's not for everybody. And if you're primarily
with the theme of the movie,
talking about,
if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
Like the movies you like. It's
you
fine.
spend your time reviewing Transformers and blockbuster, summer movies and stuff like that. Like, this might not be your cup of tea, but you got to give it credit for what it is. And so that leads me on my Cageometer. I also gave it a 10. So perfect 10s across the board. I mean, it goes back to everything. The pacing is perfect. The writing is perfect. The emotional weight of the film, it's like the perfect meal. It just all comes together at the right time. And like when it hits, when he drops on the floor and, has this emotional breakdown, like they set it up perfectly for the 80 minutes that preceded it. And it was shot beautifully. Like the only thing I didn't like was the shaky cam, but I can get over that for sure. The story is what matters. At the end of the day, that's always what matters, and the story was perfectly executed. I feel like on all fronts. It's a very small cast. It's only like 5 people really throughout the thing, 5 or 6 people, and everybody brought something to it that made it great. The Derek thing, like people criticizing him overacting. That's him. That's the person that he was talking to.
The character is overacting.
The character is putting on a facade in front of this person who he hasn't seen in 15 years, and he's pretending to be what he's been pretending to be for the last 15 years, and you see that slowly break as he realizes, oh my God, what have I done? I've devoted my life to this crap, that yes, maybe it's successful, but he would have been successful at anything if he would have put his heart and soul into it, which he did put his heart and soul into this goofy Eurydice's restaurant, but it wasn't what he really wanted.
Yeah.
And I just love that, like within a paragraph, Rob just cuts him to the bone, cuts this character down to nothing and makes him realize what he's done with his life. He's just wasted it, and that does not happen without just the unbelievable acting performance that Nic Cage gave in that, especially that scene. Every one of his little monologues is just so well done. I felt like everybody brought it, like I didn't expect Spencer from Jumanji. like he's gonna be a force to be reckoned with. I feel like he's on pace to be a pretty big star, and I didn't expect that. He again was another person who just kind of transformed into another person for that role. I guess I haven't really seen him in a lot of things, but like he really made that his own and made it his own character. And then Adam Arkin. Adam, is it Adam or Alan? Adam, right?
Not Alan. Alan Arkin's different.
Yeah, Alan Arkin is the legend of it. Yeah. But Adam Arkin, I felt like he brought something to that character too, that, there's just a gravitas to that character that, you had to feel that authoritative kind of asshole vibe that he gave off, and he gave it off perfectly. You know, and that's a testament to his acting. If you don't like a character, it's usually because they did a great job. Like if you genuinely hated, you know, like if you hated Joffrey on Game of Thrones, it's because he delivered such a great performance, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. If you hate David in The Weatherman,
yes,
Nick Cage gave an 9 out of 10 performance.
Because you wanted him, because he was supposed to be unlikable. So the movie across the board, I can't wait to see what Michael Swarovski, Crystals,
Darren Aronofsky.
Darren Aronofsky. Can't wait to see what he does. No, what is it? Sarnowski?
Nicolas Sarkozy. Michael Sarnowski.
Michael Sarnowski. I can't wait to see what Michael Sarnowski does with his career. He's so young and obviously incredibly talented. I think he could be the next, you know, Darren Aronofsky. You know, like he could be a legend. You know, I mean, he's starting off with a hell of a bang, and you know, maybe this is just like, he told a really personal story, and maybe he won't be able to tell such a personal story going forward. But like the writing with Vanessa Block and you know, the two of them together obviously are an amazing writing team, and I hope they continue to write together. Like I said, this is a perfect example of like a story doesn't need to be, you know, complicated. This is a very simple story, but the characters within it bring so much to the table. You know, you don't need to tell a difficult story in order to tell a good story, you know? And I think a lot of people miss that, especially with like the big Hollywood blockbuster movies. They try and make them so huge and have so many things going on. Like Gone in 60 Seconds, when we were watching that movie, where it's just like there's something every couple of seconds, you know? It's like cut throughout the whole thing. It's like you could have told that story so much simpler and cut out all of that fluff, and like you wouldn't have to set up things over and over and over again. And we really don't do that in this film. It just like, we just follow this simple narrative throughout the whole thing, but like you let your characters breathe and bring the emotional weight that is necessary for this. And the small cast, I think, really helped too. Like you really get to know the characters. So I gave it a 10. On Nic Cage's performance, I also gave it a 10, and it was for exactly what Nigel said. He disappears completely. Like, there are moments when, like, so the moment when he's looking through the bakery window, I was like, oh yeah, it's Nicolas Cage. Because he looks like Nicolas Cage for a second, but like throughout the whole thing, he just disappears into that character. And maybe you could say like, oh, it's because of the costuming and the fact that he's covered in blood and he's got long hair and a beard and all that stuff. But like, no, he really transformed into this person. And you can really feel the emotion behind his performance throughout the whole thing. You know, this just tragic character and the tragedy that he's had to deal with, and you feel all of it. And his relationship with Amir, I think, was so great, of him just slowly beginning to care about that character who, you know, he obviously was super annoyed with at the beginning. He was just kind of a necessary evil to get some money, I guess, and some supplies and stuff. But he really genuinely, you can really genuinely see that he begins to care about him as it goes on. And you can tell, as he says in the movies, like, you don't get a lot of things to care about in this world. His love for that pig was kind of put onto Amir slowly over the movie, and like he starts to understand him and understand the reasoning behind the things that he does, the way he dresses, the car that he drives, the fact that he listens to that classical music with the guy explaining why he should like it. So yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing performance, so unexpected. Willy's Wonderland was the last movie that came out. You know, apparently it wasn't the last thing that he had shot. You know, like it kind of looks like he had shot Pig before Willy's Wonderland, which is kind of amazing to me.
I think he did. When was Willy Wonderland filmed? Because this was filmed.
I'm not sure when it was filmed. It came out. It was released, you know, everywhere 2021, early 2021, but I think because of the pandemic, which, same with Pig, was delayed. Which, both of those movies could have been released right in the middle of the pandemic, and because they're streaming movies anyway. That's the way things work nowadays. Yeah. And everything goes straight to streaming, but it's just so unexpected, especially after the run of, Dog Eat Dog.
Yeah, so Willy's Wonderland was filmed in
and
2020.
Yeah. So he filmed Pig before
Willy's
Wonderland, which must have been really cathartic for him after doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go back to beating
going from that
animatronics.
to Willy's Wonderland.
And Prisoners of the Ghostland kind of feels, kind of harkens back to Mandy a little bit, where it's just like a crazy mishmash of different genres all put together. It'll be interesting to see what happens after this with Nick. Like, let's say he gets an Oscar nomination for this, which, his name's been thrown around a lot. And I know that there's rumors that there's actually kind of a personal vendetta against Nicolas Cage winning an Oscar.
Really?
Since what happened with Adaptation. So if you don't know, so he's the lead in Adaptation. Chris Cooper and Meryl Streep both got nominated for Oscars, and the unbelievably amazing performance of Nicolas Cage was just kind of scoffed at and left. And I think he got nominated, but he is the only one out of the three who didn't win, which is messed up.
That's weird.
But his performance in that movie is absolutely brilliant, and is probably going to be my other 10 out of this entire run, because he plays two characters and they're so distinct from each other. It's an amazing performance. But anyways, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. And, my big question is, like, does he continue doing the movies that he's been doing for the last 5 or 6 years, or does he start doing something more on par with this? Does he get into more heavy-weighted films and movies that are award worthy again?
Well, is he out of debt?
I honestly feel like he is, because
so maybe we'll see him return to form instead of just doing everything that comes his way.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I think that's the beauty of him. I think he'll do both. He loves acting.
Yeah.
I think at this point in his life, it's just about acting. It's not, it's not about critical acclaim.
I think it happens to a lot of actors too when they hit 60 or so. They just they'll do whatever because
I think he's
it's
just
fun and
doing
they
what he
don't have
wants.
to do a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which,
look at like Robert De Niro these days.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw. There's a new movie with Chris Walken where he's like a farmer in the Midwest, and like he goes up against Monsanto. I was like, wow, that feels like a departure for Christopher Walken, but like, that's awesome. I'm there for it, man. Anyways, so yeah, full 10s across the board, which I don't think this will ever happen again. From the list of movies that we've got ahead of us, I think, personally, Raising Arizona is my favorite Nicolas Cage movie of all time. Probably close to my favorite Coen Brothers movie of all time, who are my favorite directors of all time. But I don't even know if I can give as good of a a rating for that as I gave for this. This is kind of a brilliant little masterpiece that we may never see another performance like this ever again.
Yeah.
Here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. These are the cagiest moments of the film.
You have a phone?
Are you gonna order something?
No.
So how about try and give me some fucking respect?
I don't fuck my pig. It's an active volcano.
Well, I'm not fucking moving to Seattle.
Fuck Seattle.
That's it for this episode of One Cage at a Time. As always, be sure to drop us an email at onecagepodcast@gmail.com to let us know if we missed anything or hit us up with suggestions to improve the show. I feel like this movie, it just came out for us. When it finally comes out for the audience, it's going to be a few months from now, but I feel like there's a lot of quick facts we're probably going to need to add in later on because a lot of information hasn't come out about this yet. So make sure when you find those out, email them to us and we'll put it on our follow-up show Back into the Cage. But anyways, hit us up with anything that you want us to know or compliments or simply to gush about the legend that is Nicolas Cage. Next up, we'll be watching the critically panned 1994 Christmas-themed crime drama and a personal favorite of mine, Trapped in Paradise. After his idiot brothers, played by Dana Carvey and John Lovitz, get out of prison, they convince Nicolas Cage to join them for a foolproof bank robbery that of course goes wrong and traps these nitwits in the town with the people that they just robbed. Nicolas Cage as the straight man is just unbelievable. It's exactly what you would hope it would be. He's just so mean to these idiots, and it's just so fun to watch him be mean to Dana Carvey and John Lovitz through the whole thing. I don't care what anybody says. I fucking love that movie. Make sure to check it out wherever fine films are sold or on your streaming service of choice. Until then, we'll say goodbye the way we do with every single episode with our Nicolas Cage quote of the film.
Derek, why do you care about these people? They don't care about you. None of them. They don't even know you. Because you haven't shown them. Every day you'll wake up and there'll be less of you. You live your life for them and they don't even see you. You don't even see yourself. We don't get a lot of things to really care about.
Thanks for listening to One Cage at a Time. Visit us online at onecageatatime.com or follow us on the social media platform of your choice for more Nicolas Cage goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you really like the show, become a member of our Patreon where you can download unedited and ad-free episodes as well as listen to our follow-up show, Back into the Cage, where we re-examine each movie to discuss what we missed the first time around, answer listener questions, and wax poetic about the man, the myth, the legend that is Nicolas Cage.
I thought you might need your ride.
I have a bike.